Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Happy Monday, March 3rd. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. I hope your weekend was a lot like Junior Caminero Sunday. Wow, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs in that spring training matchup. I tell you what, I don't know if there's many athletes that we've seen in the history of Tampa Bay sports that give you more excitement going into their first full season than a guy like Junior Caminero. This dude has incredible power, and it just seems like every single time he steps up to the plate, something special can happen. And I am jacked up. I'm so excited for this baseball season. I think it's going to be so unique with the Tampa Bay Rays playing there at Steinbrenner Field. Make sure you get out there and support the boys. It is going to be a lot of fun, and seeing all the different guys on the mound, seeing Shane McClanahan back out there where he belongs on a mound pitching for the Tampa Bay Rays. It's so freaking exciting. Can't wait. Can't wait for opening day. Shout out to Benny and Dave Terry. 8 in a row, Hermano. You got that right. How about those Tampa Bay Lightning? Dolan, what's up, Jay? How about them Bolts? And my guy, Nick. Nothing I love more than baseball talk this time of year. Yes, sir. We got a little bit of everything for you. And I know Nick in Sarasota, big Phillies fan that you are, saw that yesterday with Trey Turner and Max Scherzer. If you didn't see that, Max Scherzer is not a fan of the whole challenging balls and strikes thing. And first pitch with him as a member of the Blue Jays against Trey Turner over the weekend, and it was a strike like by a mile. And Trey Turner, he was like tapped on his helmet, like, "Yeah, we need to review that." And just the smile on Scherzer's face, hilarious, great, awesome stuff. That's what we need more of. We need more of that for baseball. We need personalities. We're trying to look at how to grow the game. We talk about that a lot with hockey, but for baseball, I think that's you need to accentuate guys like that and guys that have a lot of fun. Always want to hear from you. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them there on the screen. Plenty to get into today. My guy, Ian Beckles, joins us at 12:30 today to talk about all the latest Bucs news, as well as the NFL Combine. Alex Kappa just got cut by the Cincinnati Bengals. Could we be in store for a reunion between Kappa and the Buccaneers? We'll ask Big Beck at 12:30. At 1 o'clock today, Doug Waechter joins us to discuss Junior Caminero and the Rays and what he has seen so far from this club as we inch closer and closer to opening day. And then at 2 o'clock today, Greg Wyshynski from ESPN. There was a deal that ESPN proposed for the Tampa Bay Lightning that would bring back Yanni Gourde to the Bolts and also bring in a young forward, JJ Peterka. It was a 3-way deal with Seattle and Buffalo, and those two teams would retain a bunch of Yanni's salary, but going out would be a first-round pick, Gage Gonsalves and Nick Perbix. We'll get into that with our guy, Greg Wyshynski, at 2 o'clock today. We'll also talk about the incredible sight we saw Saturday night. One of the most epic things you're going to see in relation to wrestling and sports entertainment. JOHN CENA, finally, after all these years, turns heel. And after we talk to Greg Wyshynski at 1:30, I'm going to give you my thoughts on WWE Elimination Chamber and everything that happened Saturday night with JOHN CENA, the aftermath. It was insane. One of the greatest heel turns, one of the most memorable things in wrestling history. That is not hyperbole, not at all. To see a guy that predicated his entire career on hustle, loyalty, and respect, and how everybody wanted the guy to turn, and he didn't turn. But he finally turned because the final boss, The Rock, gave him the signal. And then JOHN CENA turned on Cody Rhodes, kicked him right in the family jewels, north of the border, there in Toronto. I know Dolan F Canada for booing. I was not happy about that either. But yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's talk some football here. I want to answer some of these questions. Debo to Washington. I saw that as well for a 5th-round pick. Good day to you, Buckin. Yes, Debo to Washington. Love this move for the Commanders. Now, if you're telling me that Debo is going to go to a place where it's just him and he is the guy that's going to be at the top of your wide receiver core, I would have some issues because, A, injuries. I mean, he's just a tough guy. He goes to the tough areas. So I would be a little concerned if he was my wide receiver 1, but he's not because you have Terry McLaurin there. The other thing that I like about it, or the reason why you don't want him as wide receiver 1, is because he's not just the guy that's going to be on the outside the whole time. He's the guy that can line up in the backfield. So he could do a little bit of everything. He's better, and you saw this with the Niners. He is better when he can be that jack of all trades, when he can go in the backfield with a Christian McCaffrey, so with a guy like Brian Robinson, right? Or when he splits out wide, or when he goes in the slot, like when you have a Brandon Ayuk, you have a George Kittle. Like, he needs to be on a team where he's one of the main pieces rather than just the piece. So I like that. I think it's a really good acquisition for Washington, especially for a 5th-round pick. And for Jaden Daniels, you look at it as a guy that really can help take some of the burden off the youngster who's going to be going into year 2 as the signal caller there for the Commanders and Dan Quinn. I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. For San Francisco, I know people are going to look and compare it to other deals. I can't believe they only got a 5th for him. Listen, trades are all about leverage. It's all about leverage. So you can say all you want about, oh, this guy got this and this guy got that. Listen, everybody knew that Debo was probably not going to be with the Niners next season. So when everybody knows that, you can't give away the guy for free. You got to get something back. And you have to understand, John Lynch, with all the people that he knows around the league, I'm sure he and his crew were scouring the phones and scouring the market to figure out what is the best deal that we can get for Debo Samuel. So when people just look one for one, say, oh, this guy went for a 3rd and this guy went for a 5th, it's not the same. If there's another team out there that needed a wide receiver at the time and somebody was able to get a higher pick than they got for Debo, it's different. Off season's different and leverage is different. So, yeah, would you have hoped that Debo would be worth more than a 5th rounder? Yes, but as I alluded to, injuries and leverage, that doesn't help San Francisco's case. Jacobian brings up a good point about Khalil Mack. So, I said this a couple of weeks ago, and I'll say it again. I don't want the Buccaneers to become that team that starts bringing in people just because of what their name is and just because of what it says on the back of their football card. That's not good. That's not what good teams do. Good teams don't look at aging veterans and bring them in and go, yeah, well, we got Khalil Mack. Well, this isn't 2019 Khalil Mack. Hell, it's not even 2023 Khalil Mack. And I know he did well a couple of years ago. But guys don't get healthier, and it's very rare that they get better once they show signs of decline. Is he better than what they have right now? Maybe. But it's clearly went down from 2023 to 2024. And when you look at the team was better. You're talking about a playoff team. You had Bosa. You had all these other guys on the defense, standout linebackers that were taking pressure off you. I don't think that's the type of player that the Bucs need right now. I think they need to throw numbers at it. I think they need to make sure that they get a top-end guy that's going to push Yaya Diaby and Chris Braswell. If you bring in a guy like Khalil Mack, he has to play. Is he going to be better next year than Yaya Diaby? I don't know if we know that for sure. If you're going to draft a guy in the 1st round, like a Donovan Ezeraku or a James Pierce Jr., I want that guy starting if you're drafting him in the 1st round. Khalil Mack as a rotational pass rusher, based on what he's going to want in free agency, I just don't think that's a good fit for the Bucs. Now, they may be interested, but it's one thing to be interested. It's another thing to put pen to paper. And I'm going to say all that with this caveat. If Jason Light thinks that that's the type of guy to bring in to help the room and to make those guys better, I'll be all on board. Okay? Because at the end of the day, as much as we give our opinions, we have to defer to the people that get paid to do this stuff, right? Especially a guy like Jason Light. So whether I agree or disagree, and at this point I disagree, I don't think it's a good fit for the Bucs. If Jason Light thinks that's a good fit for the room, then, you got to trust in that judgment. So we'll see. I just don't want them to overpay. Don't overpay. That's a huge deal. Please, please, please don't do that. Buckin says Debo to Washington will be what Paul George to Philly was. Maybe. I mean, but the difference there is that you have way less games to play in the NFL than you do in the NBA. And if Debo just does 2 or 3 things a game, right? If Debo has like 3 catches for 18 yards, but 2 of them are for touchdowns, you're like, hey, he had a big performance. Paul George, expecting him to be able to play the majority of 82 games on a team where Joel Embiid is already injury plagued, right? And Tyrese Maxey, who I think is a fantastic player, right? He's going to have to do it all by himself. So Paul George, way more injury prone than a guy like Debo. I kind of get what you're saying, but I think Debo's probably, a better bet for Washington than Paul George was for the Sixers. David Velasquez, Micah Parsons. Yeah, I mean, he's going to cost an arm and a leg, so I don't think that's going to work. But I like the idea of, them going after a big name. And if you missed the conversation that we had with John Ledyard the other day, okay? I want to play that for you guys real quick because what John Ledyard said is what I agree with. And I think everybody out there, this is the kind of stuff, when I'm saying that the Buccaneers need to really focus on defense, this is what John Ledyard had to say. If you missed this on Friday, what a great conversation that we had. And I know a lot of people like Steve think about Cena turning heel. I'm going to get to that here in a bit, but I want to play this for you guys real quick. This is what John Ledyard had to say about the Buccaneers and defense, and I couldn't agree more. Start going about getting this defense to a level where you can kind of match what's going on the offensive side of the ball, and you get this team from being not just a division winner, but a Super Bowl contender.
I think you have to get really serious at a couple of positions, and you have to spend this offseason. I think I've completely supported their approach to be careful, just given the cap situation where they were at. They've navigated those waters. They've navigated 2 tough post-Brady years with the cap and gotten back to the point where they can start to go in and be aggressive again. Not many teams come out of a win-now, all-in window and are ready to compete again. To me, you have to go all in if you're the Bucs. You have to make a move to add a real difference maker to this defense. They have basically drafted their entire defense. They've been very hesitant, and especially the last couple of years, rightfully so, with where the cap was at, to add a real difference maker to the defense. But this year, I think that has to change, and they have to really explore, be aggressive to add real difference makers to this defense, whether this is actually a decent free agent crop for the secondary. It's not for really any other position. Can you get in on that group at all? I talked about Charvarius Ward being a potential addition to this team. It probably wouldn't even cost that much at this point because he's coming off a bit of a down year, and there's been obviously some stuff with him that's made it very hard for him, I think, on the field. But I think that if he's ready to return from some of that stuff, that he could be an upgraded player. There are a couple names I wrote about for them, but I think they have to get really serious about adding 3 or 4 legit pieces to this defense in the offseason. And if they bring Godwin back, and I think the offense takes care of itself. Obviously, if you're in a position to draft a stud, I think you draft one. That's a different story. But to me, in free agency or via trade, I think you have to get serious about trying to add another difference maker on the edge. I would be in on the Trey Anderson conversations if they're to be had. I think that needs to happen, whether they'll do that or not. But it does seem like Todd Bowles has been more vocal than ever before that we have to get Recher for.
There you have it. John Ledyard, and go check him out, Ledyard NFL Draft. I couldn't agree with him more. The Buccaneers have to go all in on defense this offseason. Their offense, and our buddy Luke Easterling said, today would be a great day for Chris Godwin and the Bucs to announce an extension. I'm with that. I am with that. But defensively, that is what's going to set you apart from just being a team that can win the division, the lowly NFC South, and a team people really have to take serious when it comes to Super Bowl contention. That's what we want, right? We don't want to just be like, oh, okay, best of a bad division, 9-8, 10-7. Like, no. Let's make sure that this team is ready to compete for years, because what you're doing on the defensive side of the ball, the teams that you can so clearly say, well, the offense is the strength, the defense is strength. You need a team, if you're going to win the Super Bowl, that can beat you in a multitude of ways. High scoring, low scoring. That's why we're seeing a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning perform so well lately. Everybody talks about the goals. It ain't the goals. It's defense. It's defense. You go to Washington, beat that Capitals team, one of the best teams in the East this year. And other than a late Ovi goal, that was it. We know how good they are offensively, especially top-end guys. But defensively, worrying about keeping the puck out of the net, that's the kind of stuff that never goes into slumps. The Buccaneers need to focus on the defensive side of the ball. I can't stress that enough. Defense, defense, defense. And when you look at what just happened up there at Indy at the Combine, a couple of names jump out. And our guy, Trevor Sikkema, who, I mean, you talk about mock drafts, like his was done right after the Combine. So go check him out, pff.com. And one of the guys that he and everybody liked there was Nicky Minwari. Now, this was a guy that he is an absolute monster. 6'3", 220. Some people have him as their second-ranked safety, first-ranked safety. 11'6" in the broad jump, 43-inch vertical, a 4.4, and then a 4.38 40. And you have to wonder, if you're the Buccaneers, you know they've moved on from a guy like Jordan Whitehead. Now, I get it. We want a pass rusher, right? We want a pass rusher, need a corner, need an interior linebacker. But the Buccaneers just need elite-level athletes. They need ballers. They need guys that can play multiple positions. And I look at a guy like Nicky Minwari, and I know he's a safety. And if you look at positions groups, that might be 4th, 5th. But can you turn that guy down? That guy is a freak athlete. You're comparing his speed to a guy like DK Metcalf, played in the SEC at South Carolina. If he's there at 19, it's going to be tough not to bring him on board, because the Bucs need to make sure that they're drafting elite level athletes. When they were talking about bringing in Kalijah Kancey, remember Jack Campbell was another guy because they needed the linebacker, right? I don't know if many people out there looked at Kalijah Kancey as necessarily a need because they had a guy like Vita Vea, but look at what Kalijah's been able to do since he's been healthy. He's a damn good player. Can he get better? Of course. But when you're at 19, get those guys that are going to be impact players. You can address your team in a multitude of ways. It's not just the draft, free agency, trade, and with Jason Light being able to make these moves, I implore the Bucs to go out there and go all in on defense. Bring in whoever you think is going to be that guy that's going to be a difference maker. Now, if Eamon Warrior is not going to be there, Trevor Sikkema's got him actually in his mock draft at 18 going to Seattle, playing in that Kyle Hamilton role for Mike McDonald out there. Kind of like what he had with Kyle Hamilton with the Baltimore Ravens. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Donovan Ezeraku. Now, that is a name that we've heard a lot this year or this offseason as far as being an option for the Buccaneers on the outside. Now, are you going to be able to get a guy like Abdul Carter? No, you're not. But can you go out and get a guy like James Pierce Jr.? Can you get a guy like Ezeraku? I think that's a possibility. I'm excited. That's another part of my level of excitement when it comes to the Buccaneers. I can't wait to see how many resources they throw at the defensive side of the ball. And they know that. And there's an honesty and a transparency, and you heard it from Jason Light and Todd Bowles at the podium there at the Combine, saying that they needed to get better defensively and that there's holes that need to be fixed. And that Todd Bowles doesn't want to blitz all the time. He wants to get home with 4. And then when he does do that crazy-ass blitzing package, it catches you off guard and you don't know what the hell's going on. It's weird sometimes when you see guys dropping into coverage. We've seen it. Vita Vea had an interception in the end zone on Aaron Rodgers years ago because he dropped into coverage. Remember that? That's a smart thing when it looks good and when you're not going to the well too many times. Bucket says, trade whatever it costs to get Myles Garrett. See, I am one of those people where if you're going to trade for a guy like that, I think every once in a while you got to swing for the fences when it comes to a trade. Is it mortgaging the future if you do something like that? No, because you've drafted so well and you have a lot of good young pieces on this team. If this was a team with aging veterans, or this is a team that didn't have many leaders, like you look at the age of Wirfs and Winfield and Gedeke and Barton and Bucky Irving, right? There's just a lot of good players on this team. I think you have enough time and I think you have enough capital built up where if you do want to make, all right, let's say you don't want to go all the way up to the top for a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby. Maybe Trey Hendrickson is a little bit more palatable. Maybe that's a guy that you can bring in. Bucks basement. Let's get what you got to say. A lot of lights comments at the combine gave me red flags, not wanting to spend because of past mistakes, cheap deals, and sweet spot. I don't know. I didn't like anything he said. Also, the sweet spot is winning the worst division of football and getting bounced in the playoffs. I thought the goal was championships, not winning the worst division in the NFL. To me, that's not a sweet spot. Winning the trash division, getting bounced in the playoffs, and always picking bottom of the draft sounds like purgatory to me. Yeah, but see, that's the thing. Winning the division, winning a good division, winning the bad division, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It gives you an entry into the playoffs. And nobody was saying that it was a bad thing 2 years ago when they beat the Eagles in the first round, and they were 1 win away from moving on to the next round, and they going up into Detroit and losing a tough game against the Lions. Probably they were a year too early. First year with Baker Mayfield at the helm. Imagine if Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator in that game. Maybe they win that game. You never know. So I don't know. I look at Jason Light. I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt. I think he understands that if he doesn't want to go that route of trading for a big guy, because listen, you're not just going to trade for Myles Garrett, because then you got to pay him. Right. So if you're a guy that thinks, all right, I can make that move for Myles Garrett, or I can get cheaper assets in free agency. I can make maybe a smarter, more palatable trade where it's not going to cost a bunch of draft picks and also put me in salary cap hell, and then throw those draft picks that I was going to trade at that same position. I don't know if that's the worst thing. So only one team can win the Super Bowl. But for people to act like the Buccaneers should feel guilty for being in a bad division, who cares? You can't control things like that. You can't control them being in the NFC South. And it looks like, for the most part, not the Saints, but it looks like Atlanta, okay, maybe Michael Penix with the full season, second year under Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris, maybe they take a step forward. Carolina looks like they're going to be in a better spot in year 2 with Dave Canales. It's just, you can't fault the Buccaneers for playing in this division. You make the playoffs, and it's anybody's ball game. Look at last year with Washington. They made it to the NFC Championship game. Nobody asked them, like, you didn't win your division, did you? What was your division record? That stuff doesn't matter. Once you get to the postseason, boom, get in there. Who cares? I'm excited for the Buccaneers offseason. They have to address the defense, and I hope to do it sooner rather than later. One thing we get from Jason Light is a guy that doesn't panic. Even when he makes decisions like drafting JTS, drafting Roberto Aguayo, it hasn't stopped him from moving forward. It hasn't stopped him from making moves, and it's not a perfect science. We look back at the combine this last week, and we look at all of these players and think that everybody knows exactly what the hell is going on. And wow, this guy's such a phenomenal athlete because he can run in a straight line. I'm a firm believer is if you like a guy's tape, and then you see when he goes to the combine that he ranks among some of the best players to ever run those, races or do those events at the combine, then I think you got to, all right, that entire picture makes a lot more sense to me. But if you're going to drop a guy after seeing phenomenal tape because of what his hand size is or what he runs in a freaking 3-cone drill, or I don't know, I just think sometimes it's made out to be way too much. And then the flip side too, you see a guy that's terrible on tape. He seems like a guy that should be fast. And then when you watch the film, you go, why isn't that guy better? Oh, but he runs a 4.45 40. That means he's probably a good player. Like at the end of the day, the film and what the guy did in college should trump what he does in cutoff Under Armours and shorts inside, where everything's all cushy and fine, and you don't have to worry about the elements or playing against another team. I think it's part of the conversation. I just don't think it should be the entire conversation. I think that's where we get a little lost and we start looking at some of these athletes and not grading them the way that we should grade them, which is like what they did on the field. Now, I know there's projectability, and you start to look at, all right, well, maybe circumstance, and if he gets more opportunities, I get that. I understand that. But, this is a little different. Some breaking news when it comes to golf. We're talking about this right now. And he will return. Jordan Spieth will return to the Valspar. The 2015 champion will return to the Copperhead in 2 weeks. 13 PGA Tour titles, 3 major championships, 5 Ryder Cup teams. Yes, awesome, man. I know this was something when we had Tracy West on last week, the tournament director of the Valspar. Jordan Spieth joins Justin Thomas. They'll both be there in a couple weeks at the Copperhead course there at Innisbrook. Hopefully you guys will be there. If you are out there, come on by, say hello. For more information, valsparchampionship.com. If you go on Saturday, you also get a ticket to go to the concert last night to see Jordan Davis. It's a full day at the course, but huge news that Jordan Spieth will return to the Valspar Championship. Those big names, it makes a world of difference. It really does. Lightning back in action tonight after their big win against the Capitals in DC on Saturday. Shout out to our guy, Ed Encina, boots on the ground. He's up there. Now, when you look at the Bolts, they're winners of 8 straight. They're going for 9 in a row tonight. Down there in South Florida against the Panthers. Seth Jones debuting for the Cats. A big trade over the weekend as Seth Jones goes from the Chicago Blackhawks to the Florida Panthers to kind of shore up the right side of their D. And they send out former first-round pick Spencer Knight, member of the U.S. men's developmental team. I don't think that the Panthers thought that a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky, who they signed that big deal, I thought they were just, all right, you're going to hand the baton off to Spencer Knight, or maybe a guy like Chris Treger, who's now in AHL. But no, Bob just keeps playing well. This team plays fantastic. They won a cup last year. So now you use that as a trade asset and you bring a guy like Seth Jones in. He's been around for a long time. And when you look at Seth Jones's play, I think he's a good player. I don't know if he's an elite defenseman, very good defenseman. But with that being said, you would think if he was that good, he would probably be on Team USA for the Four Nations, right? He's not there. He wasn't even really in the conversation. There's a lot better options when you look at, Fox and McAvoy and Slavin. So that puts things in perspective of where he's at in his career. He can still skate. He's definitely going to help them, but how much? And when you see that deal made, if you're Julien Brisebois and the Lightning, do you feel like you have to make a move? Now, I'll say no, because Julien operates on his own time and his own schedule. He's not reactionary when it comes to moves like this. He's going to look at Florida going, wow, you got a right-handed defenseman. We're going to go out there and get one. He's not like that. So he's focusing on his team and what he's got to do to make them better. And I said it before, I'll say it again. Jay, I spend 365 days a year trying to make this team better. And I'm going to try to get Julien Brisebois and or John Cooper on with us the next, because usually they don't like to have people on after the trade deadline. So actually I'm going to hit up the Lightning, Chris Krenn and Brian Briesman. I'm going to try to get them on. Because let's not forget, a couple of years ago, I called up the Lightning on the day of the trade deadline and got Julien Brisebois on the air with me, which I didn't think there was any chance of that happening. And it did. I cannot believe it still to this day. But it just shows how awesome the Tampa Bay Lightning are. So they're in action tonight, and they're back-to-back nights. So tonight and tomorrow back home at Amalie Arena against the Blue Jackets. But tonight against Florida down there, you can check it out on FanDuel. 7 o'clock puck drop tomorrow night as well. It's we're almost like back to normal now when you look at it. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for the Lightning. They welcome in the Bruins on Saturday, and then they hit the road once again. So on the road tonight, 3 straight home games, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I don't think I'll be there Saturday. I think I'm going to be with USF baseball then. But, man, the Lightning are playing amazing, and we'll see if they make some moves. I'd be very, very surprised if they didn't as we inch closer and closer to the NHL trade deadline, the Battle of Florida tonight. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Recher, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. I just started a Discord and a Patreon last night. So if you have either one of those, go check that out, because I am going to be doing some fun conversations there on Discord, kind of at random parts of the night. If you guys want to join the group chat over there, you can go check that out. And then Patreon, there's going to be some exclusive content coming straight to the Patreon, some interesting videos and discussions. So make sure you're following me a little bit of everywhere, because different content will be in different places. We do see the Eagles are releasing cornerback Darius Slay. We knew that. And it's funny how a couple years ago it was Slay and Bradbury, and now they're moving on to the new generation. But whatever the Eagles have been doing, it has worked, as they are now the defending Stanley Cup champions. They're not Stanley Cup champions. I got hockey on the brain, but it's football on the brain. They're not the Stanley Cup champions. They're the Super Bowl champions. And it still pains me to say that, right? I can't even say the Eagles are Super Bowl champions. It still doesn't feel right, Beck.
Yeah, it's not so much the team as the fans. I just hate to see people from Philadelphia happy. It's just a thing, you know.
What number did you wear with the Eagles?
I wore Travis Kelce's number. No, I mean Jason Kelce's number, 62.
Oh, I thought you wore. So you wore 62 for the Eagles too?
Yeah. I remember the first time I put on an Eagles game and I saw people wearing a 62 jersey in the stands, and I was like, "Damn, they're wearing my jersey, dude!" And then it was Kelce. So
I looked up something the other day. It said you wore number 73 somewhere. Where did that come from?
Could have been with the Jets. The Jets, I had a funky number. I might have wore it for a preseason, but I was 62 in the regular season for the Bucks and the Eagles.
Did you play any preseason games for any other teams?
I played one preseason game for the Jets and boogered up my ankle. I finished the game, but I just happened to be playing against a terrible football player, so I was able to finish. Then Denver, I got to training camp, and it was probably the third practice, and that was it. I called it quits.
It's funny that you say Denver. You know who I saw over the weekend was Stink, Mark Schlereth. His son is the pitching coach at USF. So he came down and he was at all. I saw him Friday and I saw him Saturday, probably there on Sunday as well. But yeah, he looks good, man. He's taking it easy. You're walking down the steps like every offensive lineman, but he looks pretty good.
Well, Stinkers was a guy who kind of embraced me a little bit when I got there. Not everybody does that, and he was one of those guys that kind of brought you under his wing and was teaching me the ways. And I got nothing but love for Stink. I mean, he was on one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum was like Bill Romanowski, who was the biggest asshole out there. So me and Stink were cool. I'm a big fan.
What do you look at when you're looking at this combine? Because I want to hear from you. I think sometimes we make too much out of what's going on at the combine because people eliminate what they just saw on tape for 3-4 years. And now they go, wow, this guy can run in a straight line or can do this cone drill. I've always said that the combine can help you make an argument, but if it's the only thing to make an argument, I don't think you can ignore the tape or vice versa, right? Like I think if a guy doesn't test out necessarily well, but he's been phenomenal, like, I don't know, I might lean in that direction towards the film. What say you when we get to this point of year and now we're judging guys not based on what they did in their college careers, but how they look like in cutoff shirts and shorts?
For me, if I was a scout, I would embrace the combine to meet these young kids and see what they're all about and be in the same room with them and see how they deal with people. But I swear on everything, what they do on that field means absolutely nothing to me, okay? Because like if you're going to draft a guy in the first round, he's a wide receiver, and you're like, well, he's going to be the fifth pick in the draft. And he goes out there and runs a 4.6, okay? I don't know if that's ever happened. Like, if you're that great, you're not going to be slow, okay? If you're a DB and you run a 4.6, your film is not going to be great because you probably can't cover those 4.3 guys. So, and if anything, people up their stock, and I'm okay with that. But the people that get discovered in the combine almost never work. Like, oh my God, so-and-so, who is that? Oh, he's a wide receiver, he ran a 4.2. What was his stats? So he only caught 20 balls in college. Then don't draft him. If he runs a 4.2 and he didn't catch 65 balls in college, then he's not a great receiver. So the statistics are really there for anomalies, and there's not a lot of them out there.
Yeah, I remember John Ross, the wide receiver that the Bengals picked years ago, a top 10 pick, and it was like, look how fast he was at the combine. It was just like, what does that even matter?
Yeah.
Like, you're not drafting a track team, you're drafting a wide receiver. There's so much more that goes into it. When you look at this Buccaneers team, and I look at a guy, I don't know if you saw him, Nick Eamon-Warry. He was a guy that came out of South Carolina. A lot of people had him as the second safety. Ian, 11'6" on the broad jump, 43-inch vertical. Ran a 4.38 40, and he's 6'3", 220. This guy is a house, and he's quick. And he did, he's a captain for South Carolina. Good, obviously playing in the SEC. And they had him even before the combine as a guy that's either the first or second safety. If he's there for the Bucks at 19, would you take him knowing that safety is not probably the top 3 positions on the defensive side of the ball? You want an edge rusher, you want a corner, you want an inside linebacker, whether or not Donovan or David comes back or not. But you got rid of Jordan Whitehead. And I look at it and you bring in Eamon Worry. If he's that nasty, if he's a bad dude, and you link up him and Antoine Winfield Jr., you might have the best safety tandem in the game. Would you be for or against that pick at 19?
Oh, I haven't watched him play. I don't know how good or bad the kid is. But if you talk about a position, I hate the narrative that this position is more important than another position.
Right.
I can't stand that, because if the kid can play and you can plug him in as a safety, as a starter, I mean, you can go get a will linebacker or go get a rusher in free agency. So if you can get a young football player that hopefully can start for you for 6 years, maybe 10 years, I like to go out and get them. Do the Bucks have priorities? Sure they do. But if you need an edge rusher and then your pick comes up and there's nobody worthy of that pick, then go get the best player. The Bucks aren't one player away from doing anything. They could use 4, 5, 6 players. So get the best player available.
Go watch that tape, brother, when you get a chance. When we get off, go watch Nick Eamon Worry. He's one of those guys, and I watch and I go, Ian's going to like this guy. He's a bad dude.
I watch a little bit of it, and I can watch somebody's film and see whether I like them a lot pretty
right away.
quickly.
It don't take long, right?
No, it doesn't. Now, in order for me to say he's going to be a successful NFL player, it takes me a while, but I like what I see. I like what I see in the very limited film that I've seen.
So I watched you earlier today when you weren't looking. I put on our good buddy Mike Calta. His show, and all of a sudden I turn it on. You guys are talking, and I look away. I look back, and you guys are playing Redneck Bingo, and he's playing country music while you were there. Was that just because you were there?
No, they play Redneck Bingo every once in a while when they're giving away prizes. You know how big of a country music fan I am.
I know. I was like, wow, they perfect. Like storm here for you.
Unbelievable synergy. I show up every Monday. Mike, who's a brother of mine, literally said, "Yo, dude, if you want to just pop in." And I said, "Well, I get a massage every Monday morning." He goes, "Just pop in." So I've been doing it for years. So it's not a slated thing. I don't know if they expect me, but I just kind of pop in every Monday. They haven't told me to stop, so I'm going to continue to go.
Yeah, and I've been watching it more and more, like, when I'm not driving as much in the morning because I do the podcast at the house, because I usually listen to it most mornings. I pop it now on YouTube. I watch the video, and it's just so funny. Just some of the calls that they bring in, and then to have you on, it was like the perfect storm. And then your country music aficionado like you are. Who's your favorite country star of all time? Do you have one?
My favorite country star of all time, and I don't think I've ever been asked this question, which would make you semi-intelligent, I guess. But I think Bonnie Raitt. Is she country?
Bonnie Raitt.
I find her sexy, and she had that one slow. She has that one slow song that's real cool, so I like Bonnie Raitt.
I wondered if it had absolutely nothing to do with music and how she looked. So yeah,
she's cute.
Pretty standard. Let me ask you this, and we'll get back to football in a second. Did the whole John Cena turning heel thing cross any of your world, whether it was on social media or anything at the cafe?
You'd be shocked how limited the cross anything is in a cafe. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of sports. Sports and Kava and Kratom don't really go together. I heard about it on the Mike Calter show this morning.
Wow, they talked about it.
Yeah, Gio's a big wrestling fan, and
nice.
Listen, I like wrestling. I don't say I love wrestling. I couldn't have told you if Cena was a heel or good. I don't know. But he's a hometown guy, and I heard The Rock was there. So all the big. I don't think I've ever seen The Rock wrestle. That's how sad that is. You know what I mean? So maybe I should get back into it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so wild watching a Saturday night, and The Rock was just like,
yep.
And then John Cena just kicked Cody Rhodes in the balls, and they're comparing it to when Hulk Hogan became a bad guy back in 1996 at the Bash at the Beach. And we remember our guy Ron Diaz was actually in the Bash on the Beach a couple years before that, trying to hit people with a chair, and Ron had that sick mullet. Did you know, were you on the air with Ron when he was in his mullet phase or no?
I wouldn't. He didn't like to call it. He called it a power. I think he called it a power mullet. But he was on the back end of it. I
Back
wouldn't
end of the
say
mullet
full
days?
mullet. Was Ron in WrestleMania?
Not WrestleMania, because he was involved with WCW. So that was Bash
Okay.
at the Beach, a little smaller than some of the local stuff. But I
Okay.
remember I never knew that Ron had a mullet. And
Oh
then
yeah, power
but
mullet.
a couple of years into, being involved with the show, I ran in there during one of the breaks and I was like, Ron, I didn't know this was you. And he just started laughing. He's like, yeah, man, that was my thing. I was like, holy shit, man. That's
Well, Ron, there's some old pictures of Ron, power mullet, cut off shirt, biking shorts. Not exactly a 2025 look, but I guess that was in back in the day.
Love it. I love it. Some news that we just saw a little earlier is that the Bengals have released Alex Kappa to free up some more cap space. I know you and I probably don't watch a ton of Alex Kappa tape, but we've heard that he's kind of had a little bit of a downfall. What do you think about him possibly returning to the Buccaneers? I know it's tough without watching tape, but I mean, do you think the Bucs would kick the tires on that?
I think it's a possibility. If they need a guard, Cody Mauch.
And they do. They need another guard because right
Absolutely.
now, four out of fifth. So we don't know if Ben Bredesen's going to come back, but we know
Correct.
Mauch, Barton, and then Wirfs and Gedke on the outside.
My thing is, I don't know if Kappa can flip to left guard. I don't know. Maybe he can. I wasn't able to do it. So if Cody Mauch is the right guard and Kappa can only play right guard, maybe it won't fit. But if somebody who can pencil in, he's going to fit in the meeting room. He has a future. He has a history here. I've never heard anything bad about Kappa, and he had a C on his chest over there in Cincinnati. So he had a pretty darn good career. So I mean, the kid has had an unbelievable career, and I got somebody sent me the other day the all-time starters Buccaneer offensive lineman, and I'm still number 10.
Nice.
So I don't want too many people coming back and kicking me off the list. I think Tristan Wirfs is going to probably bump me off the list here pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you this. You've always told me that going from right guard to left guard was just like learning how to write with your other hand and throw with another hand, just completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't think enough is made of the job that Luke Gedeke has done going from left guard to right tackle, right? It's one thing, and I've told people this, I can't believe people don't talk about it more. It's one thing to go from the left side of the line of scrimmage to the right, but he's also doing the inverse of what we're seeing now. We see guys that were 3-year starters at left tackle, like, your arms aren't long enough, or, you're probably going to be a guard. Guys never go out. Guys 99% of the time go closer to the ball because it's so much more difficult. Is that really, I don't want to be, speaking hyperbole here, but you're an offensive lineman, so I think it's a perfect guy to ask. I think it is one of the most kind of impressive things that I've ever seen from an offensive lineman, to go not just from guard to tackle, but from one side to the other.
What's funny, I had this conversation with Tony Mayberry, who played center here for 10 years, I think, but started for 9. I was talking about how much harder tackle is, and it's not like the job is harder. You're playing against long dudes out there, so you have to have, your structure has to be a certain way. Like, my arms weren't long enough to be blocking Javon Curse out there. You know what I'm saying? And I was talking about how much harder tackle was, and he looked at me and he goes, for you. And he goes, for other people, it's easier out there. And I never thought about that. It makes sense. Playing in a guard, it's almost like a phone booth fight all the time. It's a lot more physical. It's a different animal. So for me, I couldn't play tackle and I couldn't play center. Tony couldn't play guard and he couldn't play tackle. Most linemen can't play guard, tackle, and some are just able to do it. If you're playing right to left or switching right to left, I wasn't able to do it. When I was in college, I switched from right to left, but I wasn't blocking anybody who was better than me. Right. Now, when I was in the league for 9 years and I'm playing on the right side, then you just learn how to swing a golf club one way. Whereas at the beginning, if I was swinging both ways, then I might be able to switch. But once you go one way for 9 years, you're not doing the other way. And Gedeke switched so early in his career that he was able to revert back to his college days and has done it seamless. And then there's Tristan Wirfs, who probably can play center and maybe tight end and quarterback too if he wants to.
They probably have the best bookends in the National Football League when you think about it. And I know there's other teams. You look at the Eagles, and I know there's other teams out there. We don't know them off the top of our heads. But I mean, the Buccaneers really are blessed to have Tristan Wirfs on the left and Luke Gedeke on the right, aren't they?
More blessed than we know. I don't remember Gedeke's name really mentioned a whole lot last year. You know what I think of Tristan Wirfs? It doesn't matter what I think of Tristan Wirfs. I mean, Pro Football Focus, I don't even know if they grade him anymore. He just plus. He don't get many. If he gets 2 minuses in a game, I worry a little bit about Tristan's health. You don't get more, healthy as you get older. I know he has a bad ankle. A little bit last year. Other than that, he's on a direct path to the Hall of Fame. But to have 2 tackles that you depend on like that, a rookie center, Cody Mauch, who is not going to get worse. Cody Mauch maybe at times sticks out as maybe the weak link, but he's a young football player. He's getting better. He'll be 20% better this year. So
and he's grimy too. He's grimy too.
Oh, he's real grimy. Looks grimy the whole 9 yards. But this year, this offensive line has the potential to be better, and you really don't want to. You don't say that every year.
I know another thing when it comes to the Buccaneers and with this team, we're looking at the defensive side of the ball and the opportunity to go out and. Would you go out and trade for a big name knowing that it would cost you draft capital and having to pay that guy? Would you go after a guy like Khalil Mack? Because that's the big name that we're hearing a lot. Let's just focus on that part. Would you go if it was palatable for the Buccaneers? 1-year deal, $6 to $10 million. Would you bring in a guy like Khalil Mack knowing that his numbers dropped off from 23 to 24 on a better team with some good players around him on defense?
Sometimes, look, $6 to $10 million doesn't even sound like a lot of money anymore. But sometimes you just need attitude in your locker room. Okay, Hardy Nickerson was a great football player, but he brought attitude in the locker room, and it really rubbed off on a lot of players and really that whole side of the defense. I know Khalil Mack's going to bring some sort of attitude. If I asked you who the attitude of our defense was last year, whoever you say, I would say it's not enough, okay? There's got to be somebody that everybody feeds off of. And that doesn't mean that Khalil Mack's going to be that guy, but I know he has been that guy before. Even some guy like Levante David, who, has been a fantastic, borderline Hall of Fame football player. I don't know if he's the pulse, okay? He's just a great football player. Sometimes you need a mean, nasty guy that everybody's looking at. Look at that son of a bitch play. James Harrison
Right.
wasn't necessarily the best player, but I think you have James Harrison on your team. It makes everybody a little meaner.
He's a tone setter.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what Khalil Mack is. It would have been nice to get him 3 years ago, but if you bring him in and he can still get 8 sacks leads his team, brother.
Yeah, I just looked at what his possible salary is going to be for this year. What do you think it is? At 34, he just turned 34.
Or we have to adopt his salary too? 15? Yeah. More. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20? More than 20?
23.6.
Yeah, we're good. That's a lot of money, dog. Nah, dog.
We good. No,
You
we
talk
good.
About
we good.
5 to 10. 5, 10, and 23 are not close.
I was trying to hope. Yeah, man, bring it in.
No.
Let's do it. I mean, my God, man.
23. 23, you got to get a dozen sacks for $23 million. You know what I mean? You got to earn that, brother.
It's crazy, man. Because even if it goes down, I know the Bucs are being linked with them last year, but I mean, God, man. All right, let's say it's not that high. You go to 15. Would 15 be too much?
Still sounds like a lot of money
It's
to
a
me.
lot, man.
But I hate to even comment on money. If Jason Light has the money, go give it to him. And like I said, there's a ways around things and restructuring. If you think he's the piece, $50 million is not enough to make you not go after Khalil Mack.
I don't know, man. It's tough. It's tough because when you look at the number, like you said, guys have gotten healthier, but they also don't get more productive as they get older, either. Right? When you go from a double-digit sack guy to a single sack guy, I don't know. I mean, the ceiling for him, or what he can bring, I don't know. Anything over like 12, I'm like, I don't know, man.
I mean, are we in a position to poo-poo a 9-sack guy? I tell you what, in the last 20 years, we haven't had a lot of 9-sack guys. Yeah. Gerald McCoy never did it. JTS never did it. I mean, other than Shaq Barrett, a couple great years, we really don't have that. 9 sacks leads this team most of the years, so I don't want to turn my nose up at 9 sacks. I don't know how many you had last year.
You know what we're going to do is we're going to get you on recording to say something nice about Gerald McCoy. We're going to do that. Do you think Gerald McCoy should be in the Bucs Ring of Honor?
Yes.
No doubt about it.
100%.
Why not? Or why so? Because you have been one of those people that have been a staunch just reality check when it comes to how people assess Gerald McCoy. But you've also been very firm in that, no doubt, without hesitation, he should be in the Bucs Ring of Honor.
I mean, listen, there's a criteria to everything, right? Paul Gruber's in the Ring of Honor. How the hell you put Paul Gruber in the Ring of Honor? You don't put Gerald McCoy. Paul Gruber has no Pro Bowls. No, never was all pro. Gerald McCoy was Pro Bowl 6 years. Do I think he was an overrated football player? 100%. I never said he was a bad football player. I just don't think he was as good as people made him out to be. And as far as being a leader, I just thought he was a bottom of the barrel leader because I played with leaders and they never said the word leader. And even today, he's on the Mike Calter show talking about in the Gerald era. What? The Gerald era? Shame on you. Gerald era. Get out of here.
The Gerald era. I was there for
Get
that
out
era.
of here. Get out of here.
We talked a lot about Batman and Superman. We had a good time. I like Gerald.
That's your boy. That's your boy. I know you like him.
He's always been nice to me.
I know he's nice to everybody, Jay. That's why he hypnotizes you. He hypnotized Mike Calter too. He hypnotized. He put him. He did. And you guys get hypnotized. You think he's good. He's not.
He's a hypnotizer.
Yeah,
I wonder if he doesn't. I've tried to hit him up to come on the show a couple times. I wonder if he doesn't because of our friendship. I hope that's not the case.
I would doubt that very much. I don't even know if he knows we ever did a show together. I mean, he blocked me.
He knows. He
blocked me on social media a long time ago.
Oh.
He's a very sensitive young man. He's very, very sensitive. Some places they call it bitch, but I say sensitive.
No, don't say that about Gerald.
Some people say bitch, not me. I say sensitive. Some people say bitch.
I like Gerald. And listen, clearly. I can see both sides. Because you and I, after a game one time back when you lived in where you used to live, we watched the entire football game over after everybody left. And you showed me, look at this. And there was a lot of merit and there was a basis from where you were coming from when it came to Gerald about him being out of the screen and out of the frame of the play. So it didn't derive from anything personal. It was just one of the things that you saw. No, it's not personal.
And every year that I was on sports radio that Gerald McCoy was here, the narrative was exactly the same in the preseason. Now that Gerald he's going to get double-digit sacks every year. Now that Gerald great rushers don't need shit. Great rushers get a dozen sacks just because. And he was never that guy. Never.
What do you guys got coming up this week at the Dignitary Cafe?
This week we have nothing crazy. We have our specials every week. Like I said, we have the best carver and kratom in town. We're 420 friendly back here, and poker night on Thursday. You coming to hang out Thursday? We need that money.
I'll be at the Lightning game, buddy.
Next come on, man.
Definitely got to get out there. Where's our guy Bird at?
Yeah, Bird's back. Josh cleaned up last week. Josh killed everybody. So
our guy Josh.
Yeah, we got to get him back. You got to get him back.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to bring in the ringer, the wretch.
No. Yeah, man.
Sounds good. At Ian Beckles, check him out on all social media platforms. Dignitary Cafe, 4817 South, West Shore Boulevard, and of course, the card-carrying member, the vice president of the Gerald McCoy fan club, Ian Beckles. All right, my brother, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.
One love, kid.
Look at him. Don't forget the Beckles and Recher podcast every Wednesday at 3:00 over there at the Dignitary Cafe. I think, I hope that's not the case. Like, I hope Gerald doesn't not come on the show. And I've asked him a couple times, and we've kind of missed each other. We kind of converse back and forth on Twitter because we have a lot in common. Like we both enjoy like Marvel movies and things like that. And it is what it is, right? Like I see where Ian's coming from, right? And we've actually sat there, like I just articulated, and like kind of gone through some of the things why he has his opinion for Gerald the way he does. It's hard to fault the guy that's been in the National Football League and say that his opinion is wrong when he sees and hears things that he does. Well, with that being said, I look at other aspects of it, and is he a little harsh? Yeah, probably. And I've told them that as well. I think Gerald's career could have been better. I think it could have been, instead of being a 6-time Pro Bowl 7, would it be different if he was on better teams? I think that's a fair question to ask. Does he have to own some of that because he was the leader of the team, of not raising the level of the play of players around him? I think that's a fair criticism as well. And that's one thing with professional sports where it's so hard to judge and it's so hard to quantify that type of leadership attribute. What do you do as the best player on the team to raise the level of the players around you? How does that coincide? How does the work ethic and how does the leadership skills of your best player directly contribute to the success of the team as the whole? Because regardless of how great of a leader you are or what you say or what you do as far as your preparation, if you don't have talent, it doesn't mean jack shit, like, to be honest with you, right? Same thing with a coach. Doesn't matter how great of a coach you are. If you don't have a talent on the ice, on the field, on the court, it doesn't matter. But when you start getting to the level of, all right, we're in that same conversation, we're in that same neighborhood of the top teams in said sport, now what sets you apart, right? What gives you that step up? Is it coaching? I think part of it. Putting the players in a position to succeed, understanding where your downfall is, where your shortcomings are as the head coach or the manager. How do you delegate responsibilities to your assistant coaches to try to make sure that they can directly impact your team in a positive way? I think that's a huge part of it. Once you start getting deeper and deeper into the weeds there, and you see it with football more than anything, is you have a linebackers coach, you have a safeties coach, you have a cornerback coach, right? There's just so much attention to detail because it's so fine. The margins are so fine. But you see it in baseball too. You have a pitching coach, you have a hitting coach, but it goes deeper than that. So I look at certain teams, and then going back to kind of the leadership aspect of it, what does that mean? How does that directly affect your performance? How much of the intangibles and the unquantifiable things, the ones that don't show up on the back of the baseball card, how do we really tell how much of an impact that has? And you're starting to see that with the Rays. And the story came out with Mark Topkin and looking at some of the fresh faces, and they're talking about a lot of the intangibles, talking about the leadership and talking about all pulling in the same direction. Listen, it's hard enough to win in sports when you already have that. When you already have your leadership in place, when you have your owner and your general manager and your coach and manager and your best player, and everybody knows their roles. Even if you have all that, it doesn't guarantee you success. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to be the last team standing, because at the end of the day, it's only one team. Only one team reaches the top of the mountain there. But if you don't have that, even just a little bit of a sliver of a crack in the foundation, it makes it that much more difficult. It's exponentially harder to be successful when you don't have that. And when those stories come out, it's very rare that you hear them within the season. When you do, it's like the Bronx is burning, right? In the late 70s with Reggie Jackson and Billy Martin. And somehow, some way, they were able to thrive on that chaos. The 86 Mets were that same kind of way. It's a different ball game, right? You could say the Bulls were like that in the late 90s, dealing with Dennis Rodman and him leaving in the middle of the NBA Finals to go to WCW Monday Nitro and then coming back to Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and the crew. So some teams thrive on that, but what do they have? They have elite talent. They have the best of the best, and they find a way to navigate through those tough waters to be able to come out on top. Not everybody can do that. And I look at this Tampa Bay Rays team as a perfect example of, all right, what are we going to see in 2025? Is there leadership in place? Because they have it at the manager spot. They have the general manager with Kevin Cash and Eric Neander, respectively. But now with, all right, no Randy Rosarena. Okay, he was kind of the face of this franchise. Who's going to be able to step up? Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau, kind of the elder statesman. But no, now you're looking at Junior Caminero, and he's about to usher in this new wave of young Rays prospects. I cannot wait. All right, let's talk some Rays baseball, and we're going to do it with one of our good friends. He's the man, the one and only Dougie Fresh, Doug Waechter. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man. Every time I come on, I'm excited to see what shirt you're wearing. You got Mortal Kombat today? Dude, you're such a stud.
That's how we roll, man. This is actually a birthday gift or a Christmas gift from my nephew, Lawson. He's 7 years old, good soccer player. He's getting back into hockey again. He had a bad experience. I want to ask you about this, knowing that your son's playing. He was playing hockey. He had a terrible experience with a coach at 5 years old and then was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And coming from my family, my dad was a coach, like we totally understood, like, hey, you don't want to do anything that you don't want to do. And now he's able to, like, I want to try it again.
Right.
It, like, as soon as we saw him do the clinic to get back into it, we were just so happy. How important is that from when you were playing growing up to when you are watching now your son at Jesuit? Like, how important is that to be able to have these good coaches, like, at the very least, not ruin the experience for the young athlete?
Right. You know, when you're talking about coaches and coaches at the younger level, it's a lot of folks that just want to put the time in because they care about the kids, but you got to make sure you're doing it the right way. And the only way you could really mess it up, you don't have to be a great coach. You don't have to be the next Kevin Cash, nothing like that. All you got to do is be positive with these kids, right? You just got to make sure that when they walk out of the dugout or when they walk away from the field or, you know, the hockey rink or wherever, whatever sport it is that you're coaching, that they still love the sport. You know, you don't want them to walk away so frustrated with either something you're doing or something's going on that they just never want to play again. And, you know, that's, I think, the role of coaches, especially at the younger level, is just to make sure that these kids continue to love and have a passion for the game, whether they're good or not. You know, we all know that there's different skill levels with everybody. And so, you know, I was out at Northeast Little League just over the weekend and doing some stuff for them opening day and got to talk to some of the kids and talk to some of the coaches. And it's a reminder that, you know, everybody out there is volunteering their time and they have their hearts in the right spot, but you just want to make sure you back it up with the right message when you go out there and you are coaching these kids. So it's critical to have that positive mentorship and positive coach in your life when you're younger.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I look at the positivity and just having a good culture and good chemistry. And, you know, we saw the article written over the weekend by Mark Topkin, and the headline, after a frustrating 2024, Rays are stressing player unity and uniformity. There's been an emphasis on camaraderie and chemistry and new rules on uniforms and gear to push a team first ideal. That kind of caught me off guard a little bit, Doug, because it looked like everything was happy. And you hate to put the blame on a guy like a Siri or a Rosarena, but, you know, we knew that they were fun and appealing and they were, you know, they had style, they had flair, but I mean, could that have possibly worn thin on some guys that are just focused on just like, hey, we're trying to do our job and it should be team over player?
I think what it is more of that they want to make sure that the attention is always on the team and always on the field. Right. It's okay to express yourself. And Kevin Cash wants these guys to express themselves in all ways. And he wants them to be very comfortable in everything they're doing. And, you know, that's obvious when you're around the team, you know, like I am and like a lot of people are, you can see how comfortable these guys are. And it's not easy to get a comfortable environment at the major league level because, quite frankly, I mean, it's a very difficult place to be, right? Mm-hmm. It's a stressful situation typically. So you want these guys comfortable, but you also want to make sure that all the focus is in the right area. And I think that's what it is just making sure that the focus is on the team and the focus is on what's going on in the field. And as long as that's going on, then everything should line up correctly. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. You know, it didn't really, I wouldn't necessarily say it took me off guard. But I think it's a good move, and it's something that it'll be positive, and it'll be something that the team will embrace.
Also a positive is what we saw from Junior Caminero over the weekend, a 2-home run game. This kid, I don't know if there's been many players that we've looked at here recently in the Tampa Bay area that was going to make their first full season debut that has brought more excitement to the table than Junior Caminero. And it's one thing to be a good player, but the power I mean, the power that he can bring, to all fields, that Oppo Taco soft shell power that is going to feast on that short right field porch at Steinbrenner Field. I just feel like, let me ask you, like, what is the ceiling for this guy in year one? I know it's tough to think like, all right, well, he could be a 40, 100 home run guy. He could be an all-star. But do we have to pump the brakes at all? Because it's weird because, there is going to be some growing pains. But we see this in baseball sometimes, Doug. Sometimes guys just hit the ground running, and before you know it, they have 15 home runs, and you're like, how the hell did that happen?
I don't want to pump the brakes at all, man. I'm so excited for this kid. He's such a stud. First of all, you can't drop Oppo tacos, and start talking about food around lunchtime when I haven't eaten. Like, that's not even fair to me. Secondly, I'm really excited about this kid. He has the potential to be one of the best, if not the best, Tampa Bay Rays ever. I mean, he's right up there in the conversation, coming up through the ranks where Longoria was, where some of these other guys were. That's the type of ceiling that he has. And so the excitement is obviously there. The confidence is there. We saw what he did in the Dominican. I don't think you can downplay that. I mean, that's really, really good baseball down there in the winter ball. And for him to put up those crazy numbers against really good competition, it's not major league competition, but a lot of those guys are big leaguers. So, it's a great sign of him maturing and moving on and moving forward. And I am excited, man. I'm excited for what this kid can bring, the ceiling that he has. He can be one of those guys who's a perennial all-star. He really can. And we know he's young. He's very young. And so it's always a little nerve-wracking when you put a lot of expectation on not just a rookie, but also a kid his age, right? He just flat out hasn't seen a lot of major league stadiums. He hasn't seen a lot of major league pitchers. Not that he can't hit them, but he just hasn't seen them yet. He doesn't have that experience yet, but you don't want to take away what he can do even without that experience. So I would say he's one of the biggest prospects to come through the Rays organization, and he handles those expectations. So far, he's handled them great. Physically wise, his physicality is off the charts. You watch this guy go out there, hit BP. I've never seen such opposite field power so effortlessly. Talking to Chad Mottola, Motor was telling me the first time I saw Caminero, he's like, man, just watch the way he goes the opposite field and watch how easy that is. And he's not putting full effort in. His first time hitting BP at the Trop, he was putting him in the Ray tank without even trying. And that was like his whole first round, second round, everything's middle away. And then at the end, that's when he's turning on things. It's a very advanced approach for a young kid, and he's got the tools to match it.
How is it difficult then to pit if you're a pitcher facing Junior Caminero and he has that ability to hit the ball out to the opposite field? How much more difficult does that make it for a pitcher? Is it just as simple as, hey man, I know if I'm going to work middle into a lot of these power hitters, they might take me over the fence, but if I stay away, I might just give up a single and stay in the yard. But for Junior, like, there is no, all right, we're going to stay in the yard. Is it as simple as that, or is it something more intricate?
No, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to figure out how to get this guy out. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of swing and miss. For a young guy, typically when they come up, big-time prospect, hitting prospect, you're at least going to see a lot of swing and miss for some of these power guys, right? That's something that he doesn't have. He doesn't have a ton of swing and miss. It's high contact rate, but also matched with high power. And so now you got to figure out how to get this guy out consistently, which is not easy to do. In my mind, he kind of reminds me of an Alex Rodriguez type approach, that anything middle away, he's going to hammer the outside corner. You got to trick him with some inside pitches, which guys don't do that often anymore. I think you got to work both sides of the plate. You got to work up and down. But the trick will be that you cannot get him out twice the same way, in my opinion. That the best hitters in the game don't allow you to get them out the same way multiple at-bats, right? So certain guys, when you're going out there, you get a scouting report, they say, okay, if you land your slider on the outside corner consistently, this guy won't be able to hit it. So 3 at-bats, that's how you're going to get him out. You got to set the pitch up, but that's how you're going to get the guy out. With Caminero, it's going to be more along the lines of, hey, look, he's trending this way. He might be a little bit more vulnerable the last couple of weeks on the inside corner, but you can't live there. You can't just throw it there and expect to get him out consistently on the inside, because he's going to make the adjustment. And when you're talking about scouting reports like that, you're talking about the best hitters in the game, and that's where his potential is.
I know you were out on the call for one of the games recently. What are some of the other things or some of the other players that stood out to you so far in Ray's spring training?
Josh Lowe, man, I'm so excited for this kid. I think he's going to come back to where he was 2 years ago. I think he's going to be really, really good. And I just really like where he's at. This is a guy that I didn't get a chance to see pitch because he wasn't pitching the day I was calling the game. But Shane McClanahan, I got to talk to him for a good 5-10 minutes in the hallway. And the mindset on him right now, how positive he is, just I could tell, because I've been through injuries before and I've come back from injuries and feeling stronger than ever and just excited about getting on the mound. That's where he's at. And, for him, I think he's going to just explode on the scene like he was prior to the injury. And he's going to be as good, if not better, I don't know if he can be any better. He's the best left-hander in the game, in my opinion. But he's one of those guys that is he cannot wait for the lights to come on, and that's exactly what you want from your ace. So McClanahan's going to be a lot of fun. Josh Lowe is going to be a lot of fun. Who else did I see? Carson Williams was another guy that I got to see for the first time. Here's a guy who Gold Glove caliber shortstop, right? Speed is off the charts. He's got all the intangibles. Everybody likes, what he can bring on and off the field. He's got a power tool at the shortstop position. He's one of those guys who does have a little bit more swing and miss to the game right now, but with a little bit more time, I think they can eliminate that and they can get a little bit higher contact rate. And I'll tell you, he's going to be another one that you really want to watch because he could be special.
And then Chandler Simpson, he's been a guy that's really taken the spring training by storm with the speed, and he's kind of a little slap hitter. But man, that speed, when you have a guy like that, Doug, he's a game changer.
I hated facing guys like that. Hated it, man. It was the worst because all they want to do is put the ball in play and run. I would much rather face guys with swing and miss who have power. That made me feel like, hey, if I execute a pitch, I'm at least going to get a swing and miss. I can get a strikeout here. Instead of, hey, this guy's going to put pressure on the defense by putting the ball in play. And then when he's on the bases, that's just when it starts.
Right? Who was that guy for you?
I think Jimmy Rollins was a guy who was really tough for me to get out because he just got up there and he had power too.
Yeah.
But he just
MVP.
fight off pitches. He would fight off pitches until, it was that time to where I made a mistake. And once he wore me down and made a mistake, he would punish it. And so he's the type of guy that was really tough for me to get out. But, with Chandler Simpson, his running tool is off the charts. I mean, you're talking about a once in a generation type speed guy. And the explosion that he has on the bases is it's a lot of fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see, when he will make his major league debut with the Rays. But whenever that time is, it'll be a lot of fun to watch him in uniform.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how this roster is going to be constructed going into the regular season, and then also what kind of look we're going to get from some of these prospects, right? When are they going to join the fray? Because if this pitching staff can pitch as well as we think they can, and then the defense and get Danny Jansen behind the plate, he's been pretty good so far. I look at the Rays, and I remember talking to Mike Zunino years ago. He goes, "Jay, that first spring training with a new team is so tough." Yeah. Because you are catching so many different guys. It's not just the major league guys. It's the 40-man guys. It's the minor. Because when those guys do inevitably get called up, you got to know how much break they have on their slider and their curveball, and if their fastball has any late life to it. So the fact that Danny Jansen can swing the bat as well as he has so far in spring training, in the midst of learning so many new pitchers, that's got to excite you as a Rays fan as well.
It does. Anytime you got a catcher in there who's got some offense to him and a leadership quality, that's going to be a huge plus. With Dane Jansen, the good thing about him, of course, we always talk about this, is the fact that he's been in the AL East his whole career. Most of it with Toronto, but did have a little stint with Boston. And so he's very familiar, whether he has caught these guys or not. He's at least seen these guys before. So that helps with the familiarity of it. But, yeah, you're right. And Zunino, of course, is one of the best to ever do it behind the plate for the Rays, defensively. And leading a staff, he just did such a good job of it. I remember when Mike came in for his first spring training, he was catching bullpens. Typically, your veteran catcher doesn't go out there and catch bullpens and extra stuff. Like he wants to save his knees and his legs for the games. But, Mike and Danny Jansen now, these guys are coming in and they're going to the backfields. They're like, hey, who's throwing today? I want to go catch them. I want to get to know them a little bit more. And that's how you ingratiate yourself with a new staff. And that's how you earn respect very quickly. But it's also how you get familiar with these guys' stuff, what they want to throw and certain counts. And it gets you on the same page, which is going to be critical.
Doug, before I let you go, man, let us know how Caden's doing. We had Coach Miguel on a couple of weeks ago. He gave us the update. Said return date probably around the middle to late March. How's he holding up? I was actually at another game over the weekend. Was I at USF? I think I was at USF, and some of the scouts were talking about him. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, they were asking. They were like, "I hope it's not going to be long term." And I was like, "Oh, well, you're asking me, huh, Mr. Scout Man?" And I was like, "Well, if you listen to the J Recher podcast, we had Miguel on. I'll tell you." He was like, "We're gonna have to tune in." I was like, "Hell yeah, brother!" But luckily, it didn't seem like it was anything like long term. How's he dealing with the injury? Because I know we miss seeing him out there.
Yeah, no, he's doing great. Thank you for asking. It was a grade 2 sprained MCL. And so essentially what that means is that non-surgery, which was great news. Structurally, everything else was fine. Meniscus, ACL, PCL, all that stuff was clean. So that was great to hear. It just is a 4 to 6 week injury. And so he's about at the 3.5 week mark, 4 week mark. So he's right on time with everything. He's going to start throwing again this week. So once he gets throwing and he gets that knee, I would give it a couple more weeks. He'll be right back out there with all his boys on the field.
Yeah, because he loves it. He does a little bit of everything on the field there for the Tigers. Let everybody know about what you're doing for work. I know you talk about a lot when you're with Pat and Aaron. Definitely want to give you that platform to do so here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I jumped in the commercial real estate world, and our asset class is office space. So if you're an office user in St. Pete, Tampa, really anywhere on the West Coast, those are our clients. That's who we work with. We pretty much specialize in tenant representation, although we can do landlord representation, meaning that we go out there, look for an office space just for you. We negotiate the leases. We can do it all. Buy, sell, whatever it is, anything that has to do with office space. You can reach out to me at doug.waechter@colliers.com or just Google Colliers, and you can find a way to get a hold of me. So I appreciate that, Jay. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, always, my friend. I appreciate your time today. The one and only Doug Waechter. Can't wait to see you and Rich and the entire FanDuel crew here momentarily. First pitch will be here before you know it, baby. Cannot wait. Give Caden and the entire family my love. I'll see you at Jesuit before you know it too, my friend. Thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the week, my friend.
All right. You too, brother. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, pal. The one and only Doug Waechter. Of course, you can hear Waechter Wednesdays with our guys, Pat and Aaron, on WDAE as well. Really, really good stuff there. So go check them out. Colliers, Doug.Waechter, Colliers.com. All right. You guys want to get into this wrestling talk now? You guys ready for this? Are you ready? I want to post it on Twitter just so everybody knows what the deal is. All right. Man, how great is Doug? He's such a nice guy, man. I'm telling you. I am telling you, he is such a good dude. If you missed it again, Jordan Spieth has announced that he will be playing in the Valspar in a couple of weeks. Go get those tickets, valsparchampionship.com. Heel turn and WWE. This is the thing when you don't have a whatchamacallit. You don't have like a producer. You got to do all this stuff by yourself. It's not easy, man. It's not easy, but you got to do it. I mean, that's just the way it goes. It's the nature of the beast. No problem with me at all doing it, but I appreciate you guys bearing with me and having some patience there. Because I love doing this kind of stuff. I really do. And to be able to have you guys here with me. There we go. All right. I got the link. John Cena, I can't believe you. Did you guys watch it? Did you guys watch the WWE Elimination Chamber? Because I know there was a lot of people, and it's so weird. It was on First Take this morning. It was nuts how it took over the wrestling world. And let's just go through the entire card, and we'll finish with that so while everybody gets here. All right. First off, the Women's Elimination Chamber, loved it. I loved it, and this is why you want to tune into our show. We had Jonathan Coachman, the coach, on Friday, And go check him out at the Coach Rules. Go follow, subscribe, do everything, help him. I said that I thought Jade Cargill was going to appear in this match, and that's exactly what we saw. And she came in and beat the ever-living crap out of Naomi. Now, to me, that says that Naomi did not attack her. It says that it's probably somebody else. But the way that she showed that viciousness, that ferocity, and laid waste to Naomi that was a strict ass beating. Bad. And I really like, and this is the little things, and people ask about WWE and what why you like it or why you don't like it. The little things, the little storylines, and the way that the sports entertainers, the wrestlers, we could say wrestlers again, the way that they react after the fact. And that's exactly what we saw for Liv Morgan. After that whole thing happened, she walks up to Bianca Belair, and she's in her pod in the Elimination Chamber, and she's yelling at her, "This is your fault. This is all your fault." And she's letting her have it. And she's just tearing her a new one. "This is all your fault." And she's just going ham on Bianca. I can't wait to see how that storyline unfolds. Was it Naomi? Was it Naomi and Bianca? Was it somebody else? Did somebody get framed? I love it. And it was a good match. There was not a letdown. It was one of the best PLEs of the entire year. I mean, I know it's still, it happened just a couple of days ago and it's still in March, but they hit on everything. And you look at Bianca, when she was able to do. Liv was fantastic. She really is one of the biggest stars in the game. Bailey, a pro. Roxanne Perez at 23 years old. You look at her and she reminds me of like a young Seth Rollins. She's just that good. She can do everything. She's so smart. Alexa Bliss being back, another great storyteller. And then it ends with Bianca Belair beating Liv Morgan. And we saw it when she countered Oblivion to the KOD. And when it doesn't just stop there. If you watch the entire, because that's the thing, I watched the entire event going all the way into the post game and the press conferences, and we'll get into the great ones with The Rock and Cena in a second. But Bianca, even after the fact, on the desk with Peter Rosenberg and Booker T and who else? Oh, no, it was Peter Rosenberg. It was Biggie and God, why can't I think of the other person that was on there? Okay, regardless. She was conflicted. She was conflicted with the fact that she wanted to celebrate, but she was also terrified because of what happened with Jade Cargill and Naomi. That's that long-term storytelling. That's just never, ever breaking character. I thought it was just so well done. And we'll see, because this story is not stopping. I said before the main event, or I said before the event at all, the Elimination Chamber, I think we're looking at a three-way match with Bianca Belair and also with Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill. Maybe add Io Sky in there. Maybe it's a four-way match, because I don't think that Jade can wrestle a one-on-one match yet. That's why they've had her in a tag team. She still needs work. But if you put her in a three-way, put her in a four-way, all eyes won't be on her in-ring work. I think that just makes a lot of sense. Next up, the tag team match between Trish Stratus and Tiffany Stratton taking on Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. It's amazing that Trish, who's still not a full-time performer, she can still perform as well as she has. I think you look at somebody like Candice LeRae, a consummate professional, you can put her in a lot of different spots and she could do well. I mean, you need matches like that for the WWE. You need matches like that where, you satiate the mainstream crowd. You bring in Trish Stratus. She's performing in Toronto. There's nothing, you need something like that. And I thought it was a good performance all the way around. The unsanctioned match between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Now, it's unsanctioned. What I really wanted to see at the start of this match is I wanted to see no music and no type of like pomp and circumstance. I wanted, all right, no announcements, no nothing. I just wanted Kevin Owens I wanted Sami Owens. I wanted Sami Zayn to walk to the ring, and then I wanted Kevin Owens to walk to the ring. I thought that would have been cool. If it's unsanctioned, why do you have announcements? If it's unsanctioned, why do you have entrance music? You shouldn't have anything like that. One guy should just walk in, and then just think about that. A guy walks in, the crowd slowly, and then it permeates throughout the crowd. I think you start with Kevin Owens. And then when he goes into the ring, knowing that that's what you're doing, then all eyes are on the entrance for Sami Zayn. And then he walks out. And then just let it be a natural growth and expansion of that sound. I thought that is one thing, hopefully going forward when it comes to unsanctioned matches, because it won't be the last one that we see. I hope that they go that route and almost seem like, all right, well, we're going to turn off our production for this match as well. But it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. Tables and chairs with barbed wire, brain busters, kicks. These guys just don't put out a bad performance. And I know when we look back on this era of WWE, we're going to talk about Netflix with Roman Reigns, and we're going to talk about Cody Rhodes, right? On the women's side, we're going to talk about Bianca, and we're going to talk about Rhea Ripley. But I really hope that when we look back on this time, this decade, I hope that we also remember Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Because you look at what these two guys have been able to do, whether it's together, whether it was separate, whether it's fighting each other, whether it's in a tag team. They, to borrow a phrase from Sheamus, banger after banger after banger. Nobody's tired of this matchup because they always peel back another layer. They can always add another chapter to this saga. And I find it hard to believe that there's ever been a better pairing of two wrestlers in the history of WWE, better than Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And guys may work together for a little while. They could have a long storied history. I mean, who would you compare Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to? The way that they've intertwined their stories throughout their careers. I don't know if anybody compares. I mean, the ones that come to mind, you look at Kane and Undertaker, you look at Triple H and Shawn Michaels. But I don't know if I would compare them to Kevin and Sami because of what happened in NXT. There's so many different heel turns. There's so many different aspects of what they were able to do. I mean, they main evented WrestleMania. So you could say, all right, yeah, HBK and Triple H because of the heel turns, because of the history with D-Generation X. I get that, right? But when you look at these two guys, vicious heel turns, so many in-depth storylines. You didn't have a guy leave like Shawn Michaels did because he lost his smile and then due to injury for a while before he came back. And I mean, it's a fantastic partnership between Triple H and Shawn Michaels. But these two guys, dating back to NXT when Sami won the title and Kevin turned on him, coming up to the main roster where Kevin was able to stamp his, plant his flag in the ground by beating JOHN CENA. And then the back and forth with those guys, the way that they were able to go toe-to-toe, and Sami ends up turning on the bloodline because of Kevin and then going to WrestleMania and winning the tag team championships. I don't know if there's ever been a pairing that has been better than Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I take my hat off to those guys. Phenomenal. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. You guys ready for this? The men's elimination chamber matchup. You want to talk about star power? Time and time again, you see these guys it just didn't stop. There was no lull in the action, and it was just so many top-level elite WWE performers doing what they do best. And you can see how the Elimination Chamber kind of sets up what the next chapter in the stories are for multiple storylines. Drew McIntyre, he gets pinned by Damian Priest, rolled up there after hitting a Claymore, and you're wondering, all right, where does Drew go from here? And I know Coach said, I think Drew was a guy that can win it all, and there was people that thought Drew McIntyre was going to be that guy, but he wasn't. He loses. Damian Priest beats him. That's probably the match we'll see at WrestleMania. Then Damian Priest loses, and he gets eliminated by Logan Paul. Logan Paul loses and gets eliminated. And then you see the final three, which is, Paul gets eliminated by CM Punk. Don't be surprised if you see that interaction tonight. But Seth Rollins, John Cena, and CM Punk, the final three. And I think a lot of people thought that that was what it was going to be. And you look at what Seth Rollins does in these type of matches. He really is that guy that regardless of the match, he's going to do something important. It could be an Elimination Chamber, Money in the Bank, Royal Rumble. It could be a match that doesn't even have anything to do with him, like we saw with night 2 of WrestleMania last year, where Roman hit him with the chair instead of Cody. Like, he is the glue when it comes to the WWE. Was I surprised that he got pinned? No, because I think Seth did exactly what he was supposed to do, and that was be in that spot to cost somebody and also get beat in an extravagant way. So he gets beaten after he takes a go to sleep and then an AA. He gets knocked out by 2 of the most iconic finishers ever. Then, after Punk gets hit kind of through the ropes, here comes Seth Rollins, boom, stomps his head, and Punk played it off so well, just kind of laying there. And here comes John Cena with the STF. Punk passes out while Seth Rollins is screaming for him to die from outside of the ring. Amazing. It was nuts. So we knew that going into this pay-per-view that we were going to see Cody Rhodes answer the final boss. We knew that. But my question was, when we didn't see it before Elimination Chamber, is the winner of the Elimination Chamber going to be out there when this happens? Or are they going to go to break? Are they going to take their time? Are they going to set it up with a big time package and then have Cody go out to the ring? And then here comes the final boss. When Cody's music played while John Cena was still in the ring, I had a feeling that something was up with Cena. And I hate that. I hate saying that. And I just, it happens. It comes with the territory when you're a wrestling fan, because you're always looking out for the swerve. You're always looking out for something to happen. And when Cena was out there and Cody's music played, I went, oh shit, something's about to go down. So they go out there, and then here comes the final boss. And I still can't believe that they didn't bleep it out. But after a slight back and forth, we see Cody Rhodes tell Rock to go F himself and that he is not going to give him his soul. Cena hyping it up, looking happy, gives Cody's daps, pulls him in, and then it was eerily reminiscent of the time where Randy Orton was hoisted up on Batista's shoulders and Triple H was giving him the thumbs up, and then he looked at Batista and then he goes like this. They drop Randy Orton after he wins the World Heavyweight title, and then they beat the dog crap out of him. Evolution turns on Randy Orton. It was something similar there where John Cena, as he's in mid-embrace with Cody Rhodes, he looks up at The Rock, and The Rock just gives him them. And then Cena, I love how Cena did it. He just, his face turned, he smiled at Cody as he backed him, and then he just kicked him right in the family jewels. And to be able to watch the epic beatdown that happened after the fact. And I'm surprised, too, with Michael Cole. Michael Cole saying, oh, brass knucks. Like, how could you not see that it was a Rolex? How could you not see that it was that Rolex that Cody Rhodes was given? Like, that was clear as day. And it's storytelling because it was, quote unquote, his dad's Rolex. But Cena beats the crap out of Cody Rhodes. Travis Scott is in there for some reason. He pops Cody with a good one. The Rock takes some of the blood off of Cody and wipes it on the belt that said Cody's soul with the date of his dad's death on it. Now, Travis Scott being in there, he better be a big part of this going forward, because if not, I think he was just I know he's a huge star, but think about how big of a moment this was in wrestling. Nobody's talking about Travis Scott being there today. The only thing people are saying is, why was Travis Scott there? You didn't need him there. This was on First Take today by ESPN. It wasn't because of Travis Scott. It was because of John Cena. It was because of The Rock, and it was because of Cody Rhodes and because of what happened. One of the biggest heel turns in the history of professional wrestling. That is what it's all about. That drama, that photo of Rock and Cena. And listen, Travis Scott was there. I'm not going to take anything away. I mean, he's one of the biggest stars in the world. But those three guys standing there in the middle of the ring, and then those three guys standing in the aisleway and just posing, and then Michael Cole like freaking out, Wade Barrett and Pat McAfee helping Cody Rhodes to the back. Like the way that WWE pulled this off, for all the shit that Triple H gets and The Rock and all, it's the long-term play. It's the long-term play. And it's long-term storytelling. And that is that's the reason why the WWE is so great. It's because when they do things like that, the roller coaster of emotion, it's incomparable. The way that they do things, it's bar none better than anybody that we've ever seen do it. And then the post game, to be able to see what John Cena was able to do, to be able to see what The Rock was able to do and Triple H, like it's not just what goes on in the ring. It's everything. It's everything. It's the pomp and circumstance, right? But it just they didn't miss Saturday night. They didn't miss. Now, a lot of people are asking, is this the best heel turn of all time? Is it number one? And I'm going to say the John Cena turn was amazing. Again, I love how he used the Rolex as brass knuckles and beat the living crap out of Cody. You know, Cena walking into that press conference afterwards, taking the mic out of the stand and just dropping it on the table was so incredibly well done. I can't wait to see where this is going. You know, The Rock holding up those three fingers at Bad Blood. Was that a foreshadowing of Cena coming on board, hustle, loyalty, and respect? Or does that mean that there's one more piece to the puzzle? I loved it all, to be honest with you. But with that being said, this was only the second greatest heel turn of all time. And I'm going to tell you why Hulk Hogan teaming up with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall to form the NWO at Bash at the Beach in 1996 was number one. Here's the three reasons. Number one, there was no internet to speculate what was going to happen. We all knew that there was a third man back in 96, but we didn't know it was going to be someone turning heel. We were left watching the match with Hall and Nash taking on Macho Man and Sting and Lex Luger and waiting for that last person to walk down the aisle and arrive. And Hogan wasn't even anywhere in the conversation. So that's why it was such a surprise. Number two, the fan reaction to the turn itself. I mean, after the match was over, because it didn't really end there at Bash at the Beach, me and Gene Okerlund went into the ring to interview the NWO, and the entire canvas was littered with garbage. People were pissed. Now, peppered through, you might see people that were excited a little bit, but the overwhelming majority of that audience was not happy. And even though there are people that are genuinely upset that Cena is now a heel, there's still a large contingent of the wrestling fan base that has been wanting this for many, many years. And number three, John Cena is not Hulk Hogan. Now, as much as Cena has done in his career, in and out of wrestling, and Hulk Hogan, I know, isn't certainly the apple of many people's eyes as he once was, we can all agree that wrestling would not be here today if it wasn't for Hulkamania running wild in the 80s and the 90s. He made it mainstream. And when he turned, it was like your entire childhood flipped upside down. I know them both. I know it's kind of crazy to think that the guy that said, say your prayers and eat your vitamins and listen to your parents turned heel. And now we have the guy that said, never give up and hustle, loyalty, respect. Now he's the bad guy. It's all great. It was all fantastic. But my question to you guys is, which one was better? Because I think they were both amazing. What a great event overall Saturday night. When you think about what goes on in professional wrestling and how people at times kind of look at it and they're like, not really my thing, or I only watched it when Rock and Stone Cold were around. Well, now it's on ESPN in the morning. And now you're starting to see more and more people. Just think back. Think back to over the weekend when that happened. Go look at your social media. Go look at Twitter, look at Facebook, look at Instagram, and you're going to hear the numbers this week on WWE television. This was something that overlapped sports, entertainment, pop culture, it was on the tip of everybody's tongue. And you see all the memes. Now listen, we're in a meme-driven world. And you're seeing everybody in that look on JOHN CENA's face. And we're not going to see him for a while because he left right after the press conference last night to Africa to resume filming. But the next time that he steps into a WWE ring and he cracks the mic and he's there in front of a live audience, I cannot wait to see the reaction, because this is one of the most polarizing figures that we've seen in pro wrestling. Even to this day, you'll still hear, "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." It's been like that his entire career. He was a guy that I know a lot of people thought he was force-fed down your throats. He was a wrestler that was targeting audiences of, young children. We don't want that guy. He was too clean. He's too polished. We're going to boo the hell out of him. But now we're seeing a Cena that I think a lot of people were wondering, are we ever going to see this guy? And especially now, especially during this time where he has announced that this is it. This is going to be the last thing for me. I am going to go out. This is going to be my last year as a live performer. And now he's turned heel. I can't wait for Monday Night Raw tonight. Can't wait to hear what the periphery has to say. And I'm talking about guys outside of The Rock, John Cena, and Cody. Like, what does Seth Rollins have to say about this? What does CM Punk have to say about this? What are the Usos have to say? What about Roman Reigns? When does he come back? Because you have to think Roman Reigns is going to be involved in a big time match. It's going to be with Seth Rollins. And as much as I thought that it's going to be, and I've been saying this for weeks after Royal Rumble, I thought it was going to be Rollins against Reigns one-on-one, CM Punk joining up that match with Cody and John Cena. I'm here to say that I don't think that's happening anymore. I don't think you can add CM Punk into that match with Cody and John Cena. It is too powerful. It is too powerful. That has to be a one-on-one matchup. And with the way that Seth Rollins cost CM Punk in that match, I think that storyline just continues. It continues. Where does that go when it comes to CM Punk in his favor? I don't know. But as much as we want to talk about CM Punk in the favor, I think we're getting some things wrong when we're talking about, like Roman owes him. Roman doesn't owe him shit. It's Paul Heyman that owes him. And also, it doesn't necessarily have to be WrestleMania. It doesn't have to be WrestleMania. It could be something else. We just don't know what it is. So a fantastic WWE Elimination Chamber. Cannot wait until Monday Night Raw kicks off tonight. Lightning back in action tonight, 7 o'clock. They're down in South Florida against the Panthers. And some breaking news about a half hour ago. Andrei Vasilevskiy named the NHL's first star of the week, stopping 71 of the 73 shots he faced, going 3-0-0 with a .67 goals against average. Rupe Hintz, the second star. Nick Suzuki, the third star. Vazzy, 71 of 73, 3-0, .67 goals against, 973 save percentage. He has been fantastic so far this year. Vezina Trophy, Conn Smythe winner. Could he win another Vezina? I mean, round the stretch they go. When you look at what Connor Hellebuck has done this year, it's hard to think that he's going to relinquish that top spot, because you look at goals against, he's under 2. 1.99. But Vazzy, now at a 2.21, is good for third. He's a 2 percentage points or 0.02 of a point behind Jacob Markstrom. And then you look at the save percentage, and Hellebuck is number 1 at 927, and Vazzy is number 2 at 923. So with 29 wins for Andre, 36 for Connor Hellebuck, can he find a way to be able to get back? And you're going to need Connor Hellebuck to slip up a little bit, down the stretch for that to be able to happen. But we'll see. But I do know that the Tampa Bay Lightning have won 8 in a row. They're going for 9 in a row against South Florida. And Andrei Vasilevskiy is going to be between the pipes once again tonight. Our guy Ed Encina asked John Cooper this morning how this year is different approaching the trade deadline. Bolts have cap space, so deals don't have to be dollar in, dollar out like in the past. But with so many teams still in the playoff race, there aren't many sellers right now. And here is what John Cooper had to say. For sure, it's different for us We haven't been in this situation before, but it's not like we haven't had a huge gap in cap space. I think that Julian has done a great job this year of managing it and giving us an opportunity if there is something for us to improve our team. But again, there's zero guarantees. In the end, we've given us an opportunity, hopefully, but I think the ask for a lot of teams is different this year. All right. With that being said, when I look at this Lightning team as it stands right now, they are 35, 20, and 4, good for 74 points in the Atlantic Division. They are 3 points behind the Panthers for second. They're 4 points behind the Maple Leafs for first. They've also only played 59 games. Panthers have 2 games in hand. They have 2 games in hand over the Panthers. So they played 59. The Panthers have played 61. Lightning, again, 59. The Leafs have played 60. So tonight would go a long way as they're in the midst of this 8-game winning streak. The Bolts 14, 13, and 2 on the road. Their goal differential of plus 55 is number 1 in the division. They're 9-0-1 over their last 10 games. But you're looking at this Florida Panthers team, and as much as we've talked about Seth Jones now in with the team playing on that right side of the defense, they're also dealing with some open cap space now because of Matthew Tkachuk being placed on long-term IR. And thank you for Ryan chipping in on that. I think that severely hurts them because he is a guy that does so many good things for them, whether it's scoring goals, whether it's being a physical presence, just being an overall leader. We had that conversation before about leadership, about guys that are in the lineup and what kind of impact that they have on the team. And Matthew Tkachuk is one of those guys. And not having him in there is going to hurt. We know what Barkov brings to the table, and Reinhardt and Sam Bennett, who was fantastic for Team Canada. But not having Tkachuk in there is tough. And when you're playing a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning that really are firing on all cylinders right now, will that impact how the game goes tonight? And one thing that we've been able to notice playing against the Washington Capitals on Saturday and now against the Florida Panthers tonight is in the midst of this entire thing, towards the end of this, and I don't want to say end, but now that we're almost 10 games into it, you're playing teams at this point where you have to play some of your most honest hockey that you have. You cannot cheat the game. You cannot get to a point where you're leaking out of the offensive zone and you're hanging around the red line and you're trying, because these teams are solid defensively. You're going to have to earn every little bit of ice out there. And when you're playing against this Florida Panthers team, they have proof of concept. They're the defending Stanley Cup champs. So it's not going to be Paul Maurice really changing too much. They're just going to go out there and play hockey the way that they know how. And for the Lightning, talking about, I would much rather them, and this doesn't have really anything to do when I'm talking about kind of rivalries. But if the Lightning are going to lose one of these next 2 games, I'd much rather it be tomorrow at home against Columbus on the backside of this back-to-back than tonight against the Florida Panthers for a multitude of reasons. One, I just think you can prove that this is no fluke by really putting a stamp on your winning streak by beating the team that hoisted the Stanley Cup last year. If you lose tomorrow night, back end of the back on back-to-back, you can kind of, it also doesn't hurt you in the division, right? Columbus being a team that is battling for a wild card, battling in the Metropolitan Division, that's not going to hurt you as much as a loss to, let's say if you have to lose one or two, one of the two, as a loss to the Panthers. Like you win that game tonight against Florida, and I'm talking about in regulation. You have 76 points, they have 77, you have a game in hand. You like your chances. You lose this game, they have 79, you have 74, you're 5 behind with only one game. Or excuse me, you'll still have 2 games in hand, but this is that opportunity to continue going forward and could continue to put pressure on the teams in the Atlantic. And I know when you look at a team like Toronto, they're such a good regular season team. They overwhelm the opposition. Some of these teams, they're going out there and like the goal that Nylander scored there, playing Pittsburgh, clearly a talent disparity there. And when you watch them, teams can't battle with Toronto. But the better teams, they go and they play a good defensive game, and Toronto has trouble with them. Unfortunately, there's more bad teams in the NHL than good teams. So you'll get a team like Toronto that just continuously munches points. But I look at this season, and I think it's so vital and so important for the team in the Atlantic Division to get that 1 seed, to play the lowest remaining wild card. Because as of right now, if the season ended today, Toronto would be that 2 seed. So because the Capitals would be number 1, they have 84 points. Toronto would be technically the quote unquote 2 seed or what have you. So the Capitals would play the lowest wild card. As of right now, it'll be the Red Wings. And the Maple Leafs would play the higher wild card. That'd be the Columbus Blue Jackets. So then we would see the Panthers take on the Lightning in the first round. We'd see the Carolina Hurricanes take on the Devils in the first round. I would much rather, think about it, I would much rather try to find a way to get up to that 1 seed in the Atlantic and play Columbus or Detroit. And this, of course, the season's not over because you have the Senators and the Rangers and the Bruins and the Canadiens and the Flyers and the Islanders. Like, there's a lot of teams with 60 points. As of right now, and the Penguins have 58, and the Sabres are the really only team at it. They're 53. But the difference between the Columbus Blue Jackets in the first wild card spot and the New York Islanders is 7 points. There's still 22 games left to go for a lot of these teams. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 teams really battling for that second wild card spot. But you know what lies in front of you if you're the Tampa Bay Lightning. You know that if you're going to finish in second or third, you got to match up with Toronto or you got to match up with Florida. And I would try to avoid, maybe not Toronto, I'm not as worried about, but you want to try to avoid that matchup with the Florida Panthers if you can. If you can. And the only way that you're going to do that is by continuously winning. You're not going to get it by losing. I don't want to play that game. Oh, well, if you lose, you avoid these guys. That's not the way the Lightning operate. They don't do things like that. But if you keep winning, you're the 1 seed, you go and you continue battling and battling and battling. I mean, I think that's where it's at. That's where it's at. Some other news. Jack Hughes flew back to New Jersey to be evaluated by team doctors. It may not be as severe as some expected. That's good. I mean, Jack, he's one of the most important players for that New Jersey Devil team. We'll see how they fare over the next couple of weeks. This just put out, I know our guy, Jared Guthrie, 813 Preps, and I was out there Saturday morning as Sickles took on Strawberry Crest, and congratulations to Coach Eric Beatty and the Chargers for a 2-0 victory over the Sickles Griffins. A ton of Major League scouts out there. There's another big one Friday night, TC and Jesuit. That is going to be nuts. If you've never been to a TC Jesuit game before, this is the time to be able to go see it. They're at their, I want to say this is probably, when you look at both teams are at such a level right now where the 813 Preps rankings have them as number 1 and number 2. I don't know if we've ever seen that where they were both as good as they have been. Tampa Catholic 9-0 on the season. Coach Paulie Russo. They won 5-4 over Tampa Prep, 5-1 over CCC, and 11-1 over St. Pete. They're at Jesuit Friday night because Jesuit now 2 in the Tampa Bay area. They beat Venice in Venice 5-3, which is huge. They beat Miami Killian 4-1, and then they beat Miami Bill and Jesuit 5-4. So even without a guy like Caden Waechter in their lineup and pitching, you got to think that is going to be a barn burner. There is going to be a ton of people at that game Friday night. You want to be able to get there early and just know that if you want to watch like legitimate high school baseball, guys that are going to be just playing at the next level, Friday night, Higher Park, go out there to Jesuit, go check it out. And no, can you go to a high school game without a kid at the school, or is that weird? It is not weird, Benny. Go to that game. It is going to be worth it. Dave Velasquez wants to know, what do you think about Darius Slay to Tampa Bay? I don't think that makes a lot of sense, David. That's a good question because I know a lot of people are going to ask. Darius Slay let go by the Eagles today. Alex Kappa let go by the Bengals. Does that make sense for Tampa Bay? I don't want any part of that. No. If the Eagles are getting rid of him, this team just won the Super Bowl. You don't want to get rid of good players. and you want to get younger. You want more depth there. You don't want guys that are on the back end of their career and that they can't run. You need talent. You need youth. You need guys that can run. And remember what Todd Bowles likes in his corners. He likes bigger guys that can tackle in open space. And if he doesn't go that direction, what does he do? Does he switch it up a little bit? Does he go to a position where he maybe sacrifices a little bit of the size and now he goes with a guy that's a little bit more of a ball hawk? Because we know that this Bucs team needs more turnovers. And it's not just turnovers, I think, because people say like, oh, turnovers, and they're leaving out the fact that, hey, we'll take some forced fumbles and fumble recoveries too. But I look at it and say, you guys are really just talking about they need more interceptions. They need guys taking the ball away in that fashion. You need a guy that's going to be able to jump a couple of routes. You need a guy that's going to be able to make sure that he can make plays, not just contested, but maybe a guy coming over the top and helping out in Anton Winfield Jr. It's kind of crazy how much better the offense did this year running the football and how this team was able to make the playoffs. And Antoine Winfield Jr. didn't have his best game or best year. And he also really didn't have much help in that spot. I think Tyke Smith can get better. Does that preclude them from drafting another safety because they have a guy like Tyke Smith? We'll see. He's going to get every opportunity to do so. It's all about versatility for that Buccaneers defense with Todd Bowles. But I said it before, and I'll say it again, and John Ledyard, our guy, said it on the show on Friday. We played the video earlier for you today. Defense, defense, defense. I know it's like the cool thing to like go against old school cliches that have been right for many, many years, but defense does win championships. Sorry. You have to be able to defend. And as much as we want to talk about Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, that wasn't the story of the Super Bowl. The story of the Super Bowl wasn't how many points that Jalen Hurts and the offense put up. It's about the pressure that they got on Patrick Mahomes. The story in the Super Bowl for the Buccaneers wasn't Tom Brady and Gronk and AB and all these other guys. Who was it? It was Levante David. It was Devin White. It was about what that defense did to disrupt Patrick Mahomes. So don't let any of these new sports aficionados tell you any different when it comes to sports. It is about defense and defending your net and defending the field. You have to make sure that you put the onus and put the priority on defense, because that's never going to take time off. And that's what I'm going to look at, not just this year on the field for baseball, for this Tampa Bay Rays team. If they have focused on that pitching, getting it back to where it needs to be. Hopefully those guys can stay healthy, knocking on wood. I'm keeping an eye on the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight with their defense as they travel down to South Florida to take on the Panthers. Can they keep those guys in check? Can they continue to play staunch defense in their own zone and that's the great thing when you look at this. And I know he's the number one star of the week, but it's not like the Lightning are giving up 40 shots and Andre Vasilevsky is just bailing him out. It's not like that. Sometimes it's 20. Sometimes it's 25. Sometimes it's 30. Sometimes it's 35. I really, really enjoy the way that they've been playing because that's success. And when you look at this Lightning squad, right, what has made them so good over the years? When they're at their best, Bobby the Chief Taylor says it more than anybody. It's not about how many they score. It's about how many they keep out. And we look over the years for some of the best Bolts teams. And what have they been able to do? They've been able to win high-scoring affairs where they'll win a 5-4 game, and they've also been able to win 1-0. I was watching the Lightning game on Saturday from USF as I was calling the game against UCF. A rough weekend for our USF Athletics, my goodness. Both basketball teams falling, baseball dropping 2 of 3 to UCF after a freaking run rule win Friday night. But I'm watching that game, and as I'm watching, I'm just looking back, and it's just, I just kept seeing the 0 for the Washington Capitals. And I'm like, end of the first period, nice. Let's go into the intermission. with a 0. Then I look back and it was 5 minutes left to go in the second period. I'm like, all right, let's keep it going. The beginning of the third period, like, this is what I'm talking about. Win or lose, that's the type of play that if the Lightning can continue to do that, why not them? And I know Julian ain't going to rush it. And I know Julian's not going to, sell the farm. But best believe he is going to make some sort of move. He did it last year. He's made moves when it looks like there's been no moves to make, when it looks like there's no salary cap, when it looks like there's no possible way that the Lightning would be able to bring in a player to help them out and help them make a long postseason run. Now they actually have some capital. They actually have some cap space. So I don't see Julian Breezeball looking at this team and thinking it's a finished product. And we're going to ask Greg Wyshynski when he joins us here in a minute about the proposed deal from the Tampa Bay Lightning with the Buffalo Sabres and the Seattle Kraken that would bring Yanni Gourde back to the Tampa Bay Lightning, as well as JJ Peterka. I wouldn't be against it. I've said it before. You need to bring in multiple players. It's not just a one forward thing. You need multiple guys. And whether that's bringing Isaac Howard up, whether that's calling up Dylan Duke and bringing Connor Geekie back, I'm all for it. You know what 80 or forwards look like? You know what 80 or 12 forwards are going to be like. Gensel, Kucherov, Point, Hagel, Cirelli, Paul, Gergensons, and Glendening. Those 8 guys are set in stone. Hedman, Moser, McDonough, Chernak, those 4 guys set in stone, as well as Andrei Vasilevsky and Jonas Johansson. Those guys, don't touch them. Those 14 locked in. But what about those other 4 forwards? What about those other 2 defensemen? There's a lot to think of when you're talking about this Tampa Bay Lightning team because, again, Julian Breezeball's made moves over the years when it looks like there's no cap space, there's no draft capital, no nothing, and somehow, some way, Anthony Duclair and Matt Dumba walked through the door. Now, he's actually got something to work with. So, for Julian, I cannot wait to see him tomorrow night. He's definitely going to make fun of my shoes, but that's just the way it goes. Just another night at Amalie Arena. All right, let's bring him in. The one and only Greg Wyshynski joining us on the program. What's going on, brother? Did you have a great weekend? It was a pretty dull weekend for you, it looked like.
Your shoes are usually dumb, so like that makes sense that they would be commented on. They're the first thing I always see when I see you down in Tampa.
Yeah, you and everybody else. Now the whole Lightning front office is always, if I wear something that isn't sparkling or anything bright, Julian puts his arm on my shoulder and says, "Jay, are you okay?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm fine, Julian. Thank you."
So the stadium series was awesome. I was in Columbus for that. And I think what I've always said about these outdoor games now is that they're less about the television product, although I thought the broadcast was pretty dope with a lot of the visuals on Saturday.
For sure.
And more about like the gathering of the tribes that happen in the cities in which these games are held. And we'll see that next year in Florida, obviously, with both those games. But, you know, I said this on our show, our post-game show on ESPN. I didn't know there was that many Blue Jackets fans. Like, I'll be honest with you. If you went to that game or thought about that game, you figured if they packed 94,000 people in the Horseshoe, then, you know, what, like at least 35%, 40% would be Detroit fans.
Right.
And that wasn't the case at all. Like the Blue Jackets fans probably had 85-15 split as far as the fan bases in that place. And that's why these games exist and why they're so great is because it gives you this moment as a fan in any of these markets to go to a game, whether it's Raleigh or Columbus or wherever, or Nashville, and you look around, you're like, oh my God, I am not alone. I am with so many of my peers and so many of my people. I'm part of a movement. I'm not in a niche sport. You know, I'm you know, there's so many of me around. And I think people in Columbus really had that realization in a wonderful way on Saturday. And it's been kind of a magical year for them, despite all that preseason grief that continues to sort of define their season.
How cold was it?
That was the coldest I had been since the Ann Arbor game. But I was complaining to my friend Nick Kotstanicka, who writes for NHL.com, and he just like called me a coward basically because I mean he was in Minnesota for their Winter Classic, and that remains like the coldest anyone's ever been for one of these games.
Right.
That was also the game where famously the St. Louis Blues showed up in swimwear as their pregame
God, I remember that.
outfits.
Mhm.
So I mean, it was 20 degrees. The wind chill must have brought that thing below zero because it was constant and horrible.
Oh.
But you know, I talked to the players and they love it when it's like that. James Van Riemsdyk said this is going to be great for the ice. So you take that every day over what I experienced in Lake Tahoe a few years ago, where the NHL forgot that a midday sun and an elevated rink don't mix well unless you want to make a Slurpee.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how that's another topic of conversation here. Wondering what it's going to be like in early February here in Tampa as we get a game at Raymond James Stadium. You brought up the Johnny G thing. I don't know if a sport has ever done a better job of honoring a fallen player than what we've seen so far this year with Johnny Gaudreau. And I try to look back at other sports, and we've obviously had some tragedies over there. So I think Sean Taylor, the Washington Redskins safety, Miami Hurricane, like that was another one that kind of rattled the league, and they wore the 21 on the back of the helmet. But just the way that it's not just Columbus, just the way that the entire league has embraced the entire Gaudreau family, even going into the Four Nations. Like, I don't think it could have. I don't think the entire game could have honored him any better.
No, and I mean, one, he was a star player. Two, he connected with fans and peers in the way that he played the game with such enthusiasm and such love for the sport. I mean, the Johnny Hockey thing wasn't just because he was good at hockey; it was because it was what defined him and drove him, and he brought so much, passion and also a sense of joy to the game. I mean, when I think of Johnny Gaudreau, the first thing I think of is when I covered the All-Star game one year, and during the trick shot competitions that they used to do, he was extremely disappointed that the NHL would not allow him to light a stick on fire. And I mean, like, that's who we're talking about. We're talking about somebody that it was such a showman and really understood what it meant to be a star player. And one of the reasons why I think it's resonated, one, because the Blue Jackets have done an amazing job all year of honoring his legacy with the empty stall in the locker room, to having his family be involved in the stadium series and the ways in which they did. But it's also just like, I was there when the Red Wings got off their team bus for the stadium series, and I didn't know what they were wearing. And to see them all come out and Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau jerseys from Boston College and their minor league teams or junior teams was just tremendous. And it's I guess what I'm trying to say is that it went beyond just one team remembering the guy. Right. It's a league-wide thing, and a league-wide thing where there's not simply just like, we'll throw a decal on our helmet for a night, but like, we are actively looking for ways to remember this guy and what he meant to the NHL and to us. And that's, you rarely get that in pro sports.
And I think that's one of those things that just sets hockey apart. It really does. Like, that's why, when people say, what do you love about the sport? Through a tragic time like this, like, the celebration is just, it's ongoing, and it ain't going to stop for sure.
As much as I don't like to traffic in, please like my sports stuff, see also NHL players show up for their All-Star game, but NBA players don't, kind of conversation that's been happening for like the last month. There is something to be said for what you just said, Jay, which is like, you think back to the Humboldt Broncos tragedy and how the hockey world rallied around those kids and that team after that bus accident. Like, it is those moments when you realize that maybe it's just the quality of the players and the human beings involved in the sport, or just this notion of, we are not as big as other organizations, so we have to kind of like, we're a family. You know what I mean? Like,
no, for sure. Look inward.
Look inward. There are those moments when you just realize that it does hit different when it happens in hockey, and how the league and players react to it.
Well, I on a lighter note, I just wanted to commend you for taking all of those daggers and arrows from Canadian media after the Four Nations. I saw your tweet a couple days ago about that, and I was like, oh, you can come over here. We're not going to crap all over everybody for something. But I was at a party. I was up in New York for a surprise 40th birthday party, and some sports fans, some non-sport, everybody was locked into that Saturday night game. I don't think it could have gone any better. I mean, other than, if the U.S. won, but just the fact that it started, the fights were part of it. It wasn't the only thing. It was part of it, but it was a national pride. And listen, you have PK Subban, on ESPN, and he's like telling NBA guys, right, which is always usually topic A of like, this is why people, they max out, they give their entire effort. And NBA former players are just sitting there just stoic, and it went viral. And it was such a great highlight on the game where, it wasn't even just about McDavid and Matthews and all this stuff. It was about the hockey player, what goes into pride in this game. And I mean, Connor McDavid scoring the game winner in overtime. Like, this is, if the NHL wrote a story, this is probably how they would want it to go. But I don't even think they thought it would be as well received as this was.
No, and no one did. The PK thing's funny though, because I love the guy. He's a colleague, but when we start like I mentioned before, trotting out the NHL players give their effort all the time, dude. We literally had to make a rule that suspended guys that skip the All-Star game, because that's how many guys were skipping the All-Star game. So like, we could look down our nose at the NBA all we want about their effort and whatever, but like, we had to invent a rule because people literally would just be like, I don't want to participate in the All-Star game. That's what we had to do.
We were in Toronto last year. So we all watched the game.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's besides the point. It went well beyond what anybody thought, and I obviously, like, the fights, the Kachucks, and JT Miller fighting in the first 9 seconds of the game in Montreal sort of set up everything that came after it. I do think the Canada-Sweden game low-key got everybody into the tournament, because that was the first game they played, and that was like proof of concept to hockey fans that this was going to be something worth tuning into. You can't get away from the geopolitical stuff, the anthem booing, the 51st state stuff. That certainly added a lot to the mix. I was in Boston for the games. They did their best to try to keep the noise out, but by the end, John Cooper's like, we won this for Canada and sovereignty and all this, so there was a certain amount of that too. But to your point though, like, the most important thing, and I give the NHL endless credit for this, was they jumped the line to get in front of the Olympics to offer the first opportunity for Matthews and McDavid and Makar and the Kachucks and Hughes, all of these guys, their first chance to represent their countries in a best on best tournament. And so the people that tuned in after the Kachuk fights then got to see, like, the best version of the sport played with amazing stakes at hand because of the rivalry. And so the secret sauce for the tournament was getting all these guys in a best on best before they had a chance to do it in Italy next year. And then, having people tune in and want to come back the following Thursday to watch the championship game because of just how entertaining the totality of the package was. Like, you don't get almost 10 million viewers just because of a few fights. You get almost 10 million viewers because of how incredible the pace and the speed and the drama is in that game.
Yeah, and I think you look at some of the names that were highlighted too, right? I think we don't know it maybe on the grand scale, but Jacob Slavin, he's just a phenomenal hockey player, right? I mean, just to watch him make right decision after right decision after right decision. I'm like, this guy is he's phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
He's never going to score as much as Makar and Fox and Hughes as some of these other guys, but him on that stage going up against the best, like, there was a lot of American hockey fans that go, damn, that it's not just a product of Carolina and Rob Rindemore's system. Like, that dude's the shit. Like, he's the man.
He's
and
legit.
then to be able to see Sam Bennett, right? Like, Sam Bennett, we see it down here. Like, it just showed you, like, you'd always need that bottom six grimy forward that's going to score a big goal. And, he's an intricate part of that Florida Panthers team. So I thought it was just cool, kind of the juxtaposition of, like, you have a stellar defenseman that is not a Makar, and then also like a third, fourth line guy that is just going to come up big. That's what hockey's all about, man.
Yeah. And that's how building these national teams is all about. I mean, like, it's not only, having the best talent, but also people that accept their roles, know how to play their roles, are cast correctly. It's kind of been a problem for the U.S. over the years is they didn't really have the right guys, I thought, in their bottom six, but now they might. The Slavin thing was great because it was a reminder that guy for a while was so good defensively that people were like, we should just make another award to give him outside, because he'll never win the Norris because he's never gonna have enough points. And people were just like, we should make a defensive defenseman award because he's that good. Your boy Hagel, though, here's the thing about him. Like, we knew he had the goods offensively, didn't know he had the anti-Kachuk statement making in him with the, I fight for the flag and not for the cameras. Brandon Hagel, ladies and gentlemen, standing up for Canadian virtue in the face of Kachuckism. I didn't know that was part of his game either.
Yeah, the first day when everybody came back, so I wore a red, white, and blue tie because I didn't give a shit if Julian Cooper, and I wore red and white. I wore a blue suit with red and white shoes. So I'm like, oh, I'm red, white, and blue. I'm all the good, blah, blah, blah. And Julian comes up to me and goes, hey, look, you got Team Canada shoes on. I go, you son of a bitch. And then Cooper, first thing he noticed, hey, wearing Canada shoes. I'm like, you suck. I'm wearing a red, white, and blue tie. But hey, everybody was just Hagel and Cirelli. Like, it was such a great storyline to come back to because all the Lightning, all the Tampa guys, like, they were a huge part of it, and they showed themselves well. Even Gensel, Gensel, Cirelli, Point being bumped up to that first line with McDavid. Like, it was a good showing for Tampa there.
Gensel had like an inside track to maybe be MVP if the Americans had won that tournament. But no, and the cool thing about it from a media perspective is that I learned this. I've covered 4 Olympics, which is really amazing, and you learn pretty quickly that when you get to these kinds of events, it's the one place where you can be partisan. You can cheer in the press box. Like, the expectation is that you are not going to separate yourself from your country, especially as an American hockey fan, where I've waited my entire life for another moment that could, come close to being as significant as the Miracle on Ice.
Right.
To your Brisebois anecdote made me think I saw a National Hockey League general manager affiliated with Team Canada at Four Nations the day of the championship game. And I walked past him because I know him a little bit. And I'm like, I just hope everybody has fun out there today. and as I'm walking back, he goes, "No, you don't." So I mean, everybody's in on the bit. Like, no matter what team you represent, no matter who you're working for, like, at the end of the day, we're all Americans, we're all Canadians. We all have tremendous pride in our respective countries' hockey cultures. And that's kind of like why the thing worked is when you get that. That's, I mean, I said it, I've been saying it for weeks. There's an entire women's professional hockey league built on the back of the USA Canada rivalry. Like, that's why it exists. They took those two teams and toured them around the country and in Canada and drummed up enough support to then create a professional women's league with those players. Like, that's how powerful that rivalry is.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I'm still somebody brought flowers to John Cooper the other day at Emily Arena, and I saw it as it came in, the 2 big things of flowers, the main security guy there. I'm like, Kevin, what are you doing? He's like, use it for Coach Cooper winning the 4 Nations. 2 ladies that live down the block brought him. I was like, that's amazing.
Oh, the ladies? Okay, because I bet if you flip that card over, it said J. Trudeau.
It might have been. I also joked with Cooper the other day and said, it's a good thing you won because it would have been all your fault. He goes, oh, I know. I love when you guys get together, everybody at ESPN, you come up with these like possible trade packages. And this one today, obviously, with the Lightning, the Kraken, the Sabres, I've been teasing it all day on the show. Gordon Peterka going to the Bolts. The Kraken get Cam Atkinson, who hasn't, he's been in and out of the lineup. He's out again tonight, healthy scratch. 2026 third-round pick. They retain 50% of Gordo's salary. The Sabres get a first-round pick from the Bolts, a second-round pick from LA, and then Gage Gonsalves, Nick Purvis, and they retain 25% of Gord's salary. So the Lightning are only going to have to pay 25% in this deal. You get a guy that was part of that Gord, Goodrow, Coleman line that was pivotal to the back-to-back cups. And then Peterka, a young guy, first-round pick from a couple of years ago that, man, could offer some punch in that middle or bottom 6. How real do you think, because I'm hearing this from other sources too, where like Gord and Peterka, Alex Tuck, like the Lightning they have their hand in a couple of different pots here.
I don't know how real it is. That was my trade. I wrote it at like 6:30 in the morning, the day after the Stadium Series at the airport. But I did good math. I said,
"It's a good one, man. It's a good one."
The beginning of it was, how do I get Gord back on the Lightning for the nostalgia of it all? And then I'm like, well, that's dumb. They wouldn't stop there. How do I then rope in other teams to like handle the salary? Then I'm thinking, oh, the Hagel trade with Peterka. Like, it all if it ever happened, I've clearly written the Pelican Brief, where all of a sudden this amazing thing then came to fruition. But look, I think that anyone who watches the Lightning knows that their top 6 is legit as you can come. but they could still probably use a right wing on points line. Peterka could do that easily. I think he's in that Hagel class of, if he's available at the trade deadline, you overcompensate to get him because he's going to be on your team for a very long time and absolutely thrive with the talent you could surround him with. And he's already putting up points on a bad Sabres team. Right. So, and I think he's like a real John Cooper type. I mean, the way that he plays the game, the offense that he could bring, I think he'd be a great fit. The Gord thing is just, I look at that lineup and I just think that they need that kind of guy.
Right.
Down the lineup, a defensive stopper who could offer more offense than a lot of the guys in the bottom six currently can. And I mean, we all remember they didn't want to give him up. Like he was a salary cap casualty in the expansion draft. So the idea that you could somehow, if you can work the numbers, get him back in the lineup, I think is like, would be great for nostalgia, great for vibes, but also the kind of player that they need in their bottom six. So listen, I
love it, man.
I don't think any of it's going to happen, but I think of the I'm also not trying to throw my colleagues under the bus, but of the trades proposed in that piece you're referencing, I think it's a pretty damn good one. I think it's good.
Clearly the best one. Yeah, and there's proof of concept with the nostalgia moves, bringing Ryan McDonough back. I mean, you're talking about that has paid dividends. We feel bad for Stammer out there. He still hasn't scored in God knows how long.
Let me ask you this, because I was thinking about this when I wrote that piece. Like, do you think that if they were going to do another Brandon Hagel, overcompensate for a young guy having maybe had 2 good years, do you think there's a better chance they do it for a defenseman than a forward?
No, because they have Max Crozier in AHL who proved last year that he could play. He's an NHL defenseman. So if they traded a defenseman, they may trade 2 to get 1, right? Because their top 4 is locked in. They love Moser. He's been fantastic. And it's amazing how he's become a fan favorite so quick when he missed 28 games already this season.
Yeah.
But they look at the deal with Moser and Geeky coming in for Sergachev going, we like this guy. And it's not easy to play with Victor Hedman. They've tried Chernak there in the past and it has not worked out well. That's why guys like Jan Ruda work, Strawman work.
Right.
Even Radish worked a little bit this year. They like Radish on the power play. I think he's that third pairing defenseman. So I think you're locked in with 5 defensemen. Would you get another veteran lefty, over the years, like a Brian Dumoulin type, something like that, where a guy that's been throughout the league. But I think, that middle 6, I think the Peterka makes a lot of sense. And I've been bringing this up for a while now. Isaac Howard is waiting in the wings.
Oh boy, is he. I read something the other day that he's considered maybe the best player in the country right now in the NCAA.
And Brisebois during his fireside chat, as I labeled him a couple of years ago, he a lot of times is when you have these ideas, he's a big pump the brakes. We're very patient, he wasn't like that with Isaac Howard. And having the discussion with other people around here, you don't want to let him get to that last year and then possibly go to a different team. And this guy right now, there's no reason for him. He's better than the Gonsalves or the Chafee or some of these other guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make a move like you brought up and then also bring in a guy like Isaac Howard.
That's an important point that people forget about the trade deadline. The trade deadline is vital in some cases for making your team better. Obviously, the Lightning have used it to perfection some seasons to bolster their cup chances, but it's not the be all and end all about adding players. If the Lightning add a Howard, that's huge. The Washington Capitals, there's a lot of people being like, what are they going to do at the trade deadline? The answer might be nothing because they have Ryan Leonard coming and he's, was a star for the U.S. junior team. So in a lot of these cases, there's always a chance that they're going to be able to add somebody beyond the deadline to bolster that group after NCAA seasons are done. And I think in the case of the Lightning and the case of the Capitals, that might be the situation this season.
All right, buddy. Let's finish off our chat with the good stuff. JOHN CENA finally, after all of these years of this bipartisan crowd, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. Will he turn? Won't he turn? He finally, this is the seminal moment you're talking where I have it at number 2, best heel turn. Nothing is going to beat Hogan bashing the beach in 96. But if somebody says number 1, it's hard to go against it because you have The Rock, you have Cody, you have something we've waited for so long. The way that they pulled it off was so good. What did you make of that entire thing? Because it was on First Take this morning, right? It's this was huge. The memes are nuts.
I can't put it second quite yet because we don't know how it plays out.
That's true.
Right. Okay. I think Hogan Andre is still second for me. Because just like, because it was not only, his turn, but it was his alignment with Bobby Heenan, the ultimate, the Lex Luthor to Hogan's Superman, that really made that turn amazing. It's not simply just, I want to beat you for the title, as I am aligning myself with your tormentor.
And the chain, him pulling the chain, and that little bit off, and the little bit of blood that was here. I thought it was
that's
so
right.
symbolic of like, he does bleed like us.
So this one, the moment was incredible. Like I got back from the Stadium Series, I went to my hotel room, I had a coupon for $3 off a drink at the hotel bar, got myself a double makers, headed back to the room. I'm like, I'm going to watch Elimination Chamber. Unfortunately, I had fired up Twitter and I saw that corporate Cena was trending. And I'm like, any wrestling fan knows what that means. I'm like, oh no. Right. So I watch it knowing what was coming. Okay. And I was still surprised because I didn't know when it was going to come or how it was going to happen. It was brilliant. And like Cena sold it extremely well and Cody sold it extremely well. Didn't have to sell that Travis Scott punch he took because that was real.
Stiff as hell. I understand how WWE wants to get that crossover. They've always, I made the comment the other day of like, oh, I had Coach on Friday, Jonathan Coachman.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that. And he's like, oh, people deserve it. I'm like, listen, you want to know what WrestleMania WWE is all about? Everybody from Liberace to Lane Johnson. Like, that's what it's about, right? Yeah. Like, if you can bring in those extra eyeballs, you will. But I hope we look back on that moment going, oh, that's why Travis Scott involved. Rather, why the hell was Travis Scott involved?
So the Cena turn probably makes more sense to me if it was explicit in the Elimination Chamber that he needed help to win. And maybe we come to find out that The Rock orchestrated something to allow Seth to come back and stomp Punk to then allow Cena to win. We could find out that Cena was the last guy in the ring because of The Rock. We could find out The Rock put him in the match. Like, there's a lot of that sort of setup that could occur to make more sense of this. Because I do like the idea that this turn happens because Cena realizes he's old and fallible, and in order to achieve the thing he wants to achieve, he has to sell out to get it. Like, that makes total sense. What doesn't make sense at all to me, man, and I'm still waiting for someone to explain it to me. What was all of that Rock sell your soul Cody nonsense? Like, I understand that it exists now in service of this more important logical plot development, but from what I can gather, it's I want you to sell out to me and embrace me and be my corporate champion. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what is he already? Like, isn't he just like the face of the company? I don't understand any of this. Like,
he's on the Today Show everywhere.
He's like, I need you to do the things like what, drop everything and fight Roman Reigns again. Wouldn't Cody be doing that anyway? I don't understand any of the Rock stuff. It's stupid. It's nonsensical, but it goes to show you how incredible the Cena moment was, that I'm willing to forgive it all because it got us here. Yeah, I don't know where you are on that.
No, listen, I am with you on the whole thing, like sell your soul. And then after in the post-fight press conference, a couple of people said, oh, Cena sold, I guess Cena, you have Cena's soul. And he didn't bite on that. So it was like, was that just to kind of throw people off the scent? Because it doesn't seem like they're going down the road of, oh, well, you didn't take Cody's soul, but now you're taking Cena's soul.
Well, they can't. That's weird, the part. Right? That's the part that makes sense, because they can't, because Cena's done after this year. Right. So if he's supposed to be the blunt instrument, the champion of The Rock, the guy that The Rock can deploy to settle old feuds or be in movies or whatever, like, he's not going to be the face of the company beyond this year because he's retiring. So this was simply the classic, I'm going to teach you a lesson, Cody, for not doing the thing that I want you to do by having you lose the thing you care about the most through my guy now. Like, I get that part of it. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you'll have learned your lesson, and then you'll come and you'll hug me next time. Like, I mean, that part of it makes sense. But again, what that connotes, what that means, how that impacts Cody's life, that's the part that was never made explicit to me. Because again, he's the face of the company. Exactly. Like, if the company says, I want you to do something for me, he'll do it because he's Cody Rhodes and he's the face of the company. So I don't quite understand any of the Rock
He's
stuff.
On the board of directors too, being with TKO. The other thing is, when he put up the 3 at Bad Blood, when he came out there and just did the 3, was it hustle, loyalty, and respect? Was it an ode to John Cena? Or is there a third man? Are we taking it back? Like, is it more than just Travis Scott? Because the other thing that I didn't like on the debut show on Netflix was like, that's where they ended the bloodline story, like the Ulafalo. Like, you can see Solo kind of, Jacob Fatu's the star, but Solo, who was like built up, he's dominant. Now it's just like he's like not a big time player anymore.
Yeah.
So the whole bloodline whole thing that looked like, wow, we came together, did this thing for the Survivor Series. And I feel like The Rock was involved, but he's not involved. And now, like, where does this leave Roman? So he's going to come back. He's going to come back because Rollins kicked the shit out of him in Royal Rumble, and that's a 3-way with CM Punk. But how does he not get involed in that storyline, right?
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, they and NWO Wolfpack did a little bit with the bloodline. Let's be honest.
They did.
They did that. That's a good question. I think the most interesting seed planted about this for me, and I'd have to go back and watch it, but I did read something where Cena made reference post Royal Rumble that him winning the title would be the best thing for business.
Yes.
And if that's the case, then that's great, like long-term storytelling, which the WWE still is not very good at. But so I do wonder, like, how long this has been, kind of seeded through the story. Because if that's the case, then I give them credit. They're very good at angles and they're very good at moments, but they're not very good at long-term storytelling. So I would be very surprised pleasantly if that were the case.
Well, who used that term more than anybody was Triple H during the corporation days with Seth Rollins turning on the Shield. So maybe those guys get involved, kind of, as long as you brought up the Wolfpack, as long as it doesn't culminate with the finger poke of doom part 2, I think we'll be in good shape.
Be in good shape again, but even then you go back and you're like, what's best for business? So I don't know, keeping the belt on the guy that's shepherded the WWE into an era of unprecedented prosperity. I don't know, maybe that's the thing you should do. Who knows?
But you know what I do know is that we're both going to tune in. They got us hook, line, and sinker for the rest of our freaking lives. Follow them on all social media platforms at Wyshynski. Greg, you always make our show a whole hell of a lot better. Great job on the predicted trade for the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was the best one, and now we're shouting it to the high heavens. That JT Paterka, before you know it, will be lined up with John Cooper.
We will talk about it until it happens or doesn't.
Got that. Speak it into fruition. The Pelican Brief himself, Greg Wyshynski. Thanks, partner. Appreciate you, buddy.
Anytime. Thanks, man.
Doesn't get better than Greg Wyshynski, man. He's so much fun. I mean, that's what our conversations are like when we're in person. Like, we'll talk for 20 minutes and it'll go by that. There was one year we were at the Stanley Cup final in Colorado, and I had like my bag here and somebody else had their bag here, and we're just like this, working for like a half hour, and all of a sudden, like, we look at each other and we're like, oh shit, and we take our bags down. We had no idea, man. We were at it. We were getting in. We were on it. It was no joke. All right, good stuff, man. What a great show that we had today. A big thank you to Ian Beckles for joining us on the show, as well as Greg Wyshynski, and also our other guest on the program, Doug Waechter. Wow, insane. Tomorrow on the program, we're going to be joined at 12:10 by Sammy Puisis, USF women's basketball standout, one of the best shooters in USF history. She's going to join us at 12:10. 1 o'clock, Scott Reynolds, Pure Report. All things Buccaneers. We're just going to continue firing on all cylinders here on the program. Friday, I got something special going on for Friday. So Saturday is International Women's Day. And you guys know, dating back to my days over there at WDAE and iHeart, is that every single year on International Women's Day, and I know they have National Girls and Women in Sports Day, but International Women's Day, to me, we always go, sometimes we go north of the border. So we're going to include our Canadian sisters as well. So Saturday is International Women's Day. It's every year, March 8th. But this year, since I'm not working on Saturday, March 7th, we are going to highlight International Women's Day. So I am going to do my best to get, my goal is 5. My goal is to have 5 different women on Friday, women only, talking about all things sports. And don't have a bunch of names written down on a list. We also have to check like who's available and at what time, but we're going to honor the women on Friday, International Women's Day. I did it every year I could over at DAE and iHeart, and you're going to get that on Friday right here on the Jay Recher podcast. Follow me on all social media platforms at Jay Recher. Like and subscribe on YouTube. I am on Patreon now. It's $5 a month. Go check it out there. Support me. You're going to have some exclusive content as well as my Discord. There's going to be some new conversations in there we're just going to continue to grow, man. We're going to get bigger and better every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year because of you. All right, it's going to wrap it up for me. Everybody have a wonderful Monday. Check out Monday Night Raw tonight. It's going to be on fire. We'll see you tomorrow at noon live from Amalie Arena. Yes, because the Bolts play the Columbus Blue Jackets tomorrow night. So I'll be at Amalie on Tuesday and at Thursday. It's going to be a busy week. That's why you got to follow me. Check me out. I love you all. We'll see you tomorrow at noon live from Amalie Arena right here on the Jay Recher podcast.